Do I hide about it? Wait, can the filter actually help this? Let me actually see. Boom. Boom. Huh. Filters. Does that almost make my chin look normal? I think it almost does. We'll see. Yeah, it's really wet right now, actually. You'll see it just dry over time. But anyway. Oh. You're from Bradford? Wild. One of my tutors was from Bradford. Can y'all hear me? We live in Joe NYC Live. I don't know him. Nah, just wet hair right now. It'll dry. How we feeling? Bradford, UK. I think they have it. Yeah, Bradford, UK. Hopefully, I get a good debate. That's what I'm hoping. Slay, thank you. You like my shirt? Thank you as well. Send those likes, everyone. We got 58 people in here. If you want to send the likes, that'd be great. And I do post my debates. They're posted on my YouTube. So the YouTube's in my bio. Also, I'm gonna sound like this. My voice is like dying. Also, I did get my wisdom teeth taken out. That's why I kind of like don't have a jawline right now at all. But no, I'm actually fine. I'm completely fine. Are there any other issues I care about? Yeah, I've spent what 2 years, 3 years debating abortion, feminism, agnostic atheism, and the death penalty. There are a bunch of issues I care about, brothers. Thank you so much for sharing the live. Thank you so much for sending likes. Am I in America currently? Yeah, I am currently in America. Have you ever been in a fist fight? Not a proper fight, no. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so if you disagree with me, send a guest request down here. That would be cool of you. How long am I in America? For about a month. I've never been to Kent. I want to. Look, brother, I don't even know who is playing in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, my hair's drying. That's why it's changing. Also, yeah, my voice, like, it'll go in and out. It'll go blah, 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 because I'm sick. But thank you so much, Saki. I've never seen Leave the World Behind, no. Yeah, that is true. It is a double whammy. I am sick and had my wisdom teeth out, so slay. Okay, we got 150 people on here. If 150 people share and send likes, we can get this out to a lot of people. Not a whole lot of people are talking about this issue, and it would be great to see more talking about the issue. So if you can send likes, that'd be cool. I did see what the Israeli ambassador said. It's quite unfortunate, but quite expected. Have I done any other topics recently? No, because no other topics, are this scale of issue, except maybe the Congo, right? But I just don't know as much about the Congo. What am I studying in school? I'm studying law. I do a BA in jurisprudence at Oxford University. So that's what I study. I'm actually finally about to do jurisprudence, which is crazy because I feel like it's quite fun. Okay, okay. Am I Jewish? No. I have Jewish heritage, but I'm not Jewish. Okay, if you disagree with me, send a guest request down here. Send a guest request down here, that'd be great. What do I intend to do after my degree? Um, I don't know, Queens. I kind of want to do media. This type of area. Very cool. Hello, what'd you send a guest request to disagree on?
I just wanted to let you know that these Palestinians hate Americans and they hate Israel and they would kill you in an instant. You have a good day.
The only hate I've seen is from Israelis. Okay, let's see. Hello.
How's it going?
Doing well. What'd you send a guest request to disagree on?
Um, do you, what's the word, that, for example, Vivek, what's the word where people don't want the US to give anyone money? What's the word for it?
What, isolationist?
Isolationist, yeah, yeah. Are you an isolationist?
Not ubiquitously.
Okay. So you're choosing Israel to withdraw our funding from because of their acts or because you don't believe we should be funding anyone?
For so not ubiquitously, right? So
Yeah.
I have an issue precisely with the actions of Israel. And I think diplomatically, America needs to take a different approach to Israel that doesn't include writing effectively a blank check.
Okay. I mean, I think that if you just look at the history, I think there's one side that kind of has been much less rational. Now you can talk about whatever led to that. You can talk about what happened in 1948. You can talk about pre 1948 and the terror around the area. But in these past 75 years, any rational human looking at this conflict is gonna see it in a one-sided view. In that one-sided view is going to
I
be that
disagree with that wholeheartedly.
anyone who's not using bias, I would because here's
I'm
the
not
thing: you
using
have
bias,
one
brother. You don't
side.
know my opinion. I don't
Well, I
know how
do.
you
I've
can
listened to your
characterize
live.
the Israel and the Israeli government as more rational when the PA and the PLO are the ones agreeing with international law and succeeding to international law, and Israel is not and has actively denied international law. So if we want to talk rational, right, if we want to pretend like this isn't about politics and just go into the, pseudo-logical argument, international law is a good place to start.
Okay,
And
I
the
have a
Israeli
question.
position is the one in violation of international law, and the PLO and PA's position is the one in agreement with it.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Is not allowing Jews into your area breaking of international law? Because I don't see any Jews in PLO areas in the West Bank. When Jews
Well,
go, they're
is not
unallowed.
allowing. Wait, so this is interesting.
Is that a war
First of all,
crime?
Jews
I
do.
don't.
There are Jews in the West Bank.
In PLO
Let's be
controlled
very clear.
areas? No.
the The West Bank is partially controlled by Fatah, and there are
I
Jews in the West Bank.
not well. It's confusing. Not so. In the Israeli controlled areas, in the split zones, there's three zones. In the zones in which Fatah fully controls, there's no Jews, and when
No,
they go,
Palestinian Jews live in the PLO controlled areas, Area C, I believe it is.
Palestinian Jews.
Yeah, so this is interesting. First of
What is
all,
what is
it's
a
not.
Palestinian?
One second. You ask a question. I've answered it. Um, let's go into this for a second because it's a really interesting question. Is it illegal to not allow certain ethnic groups into your country? No, that it should be international law wise. It should be, right? But it's not. So we can talk the morals of that. But even if they were having a unilateral limitation on Jewish people immigrating, right? That wouldn't be in violation of international law. What would be is denying people who have the right to return because of their expulsion during wartime into a given area, and that is what Israel is doing.
Okay, let me say something. I understand your opinion behind international law, but you kind of just pointed out yourself. You said how you don't agree with part of it. So let me ask you this question: why are you using this international law as this like objective moral standard when you disagree with
I
someone?
didn't.
Well, you're holding Israel to this high standard of international law, but then
No, I said it was the
simultaneously
baseline.
disagreeing with parts of international law. Because at the end of
No,
the
I'm
day,
not
it's
disagreeing. I'm
mainly
saying it should
bullshit.
go farther.
When
So
you
I'm
when
saying
you
it's the
look at these
lowest
international
bar.
law and look at the UN and Amnesty International, all these organizations,
So if you ask a
they have
question, why do
they
you
have.
ask a question if you don't want an answer?
Fair enough. I'll let you answer.
Wonderful. So what I said was it didn't go far enough, right? But I'm actually using not international law as the very top of morality. I'm saying the very lowest conceivable level of human decency is following, right, this basic international law. It's like using the national law as the moral standard, right? I'm not a good person because I'm not a criminal, right? But if I'm a criminal, that's a good place to start saying maybe I'm doing something wrong. You see how that works? So when we talk about how in alignment they are, you used logical, which isn't a standard. Both are being logical in their own stances, right? So I used the international law to give an actual type of very, very low bar standard because that's a good starting point. And when we talk about the starting point, I think it's pretty clear that Israel, at least in its modern form, by comparison to the PLO and PA, are the ones actively denouncing international law, whereas the PA and PLO have succumbed to it.
Why do you think Israel is not allowing the right to return? Do you think it is based on
Because
true
they're
hate?
racist, and they
Okay,
racism is
use
and
your use.
racism is required to maintain their state.
Okay, think critically. What is the real reason? Just what do you think?
So if you're gonna,
Do you
once
know what
again,
Zionism
if
is?
you're gonna ask a question and I'm gonna answer, and then you're just not going to accept my answer, I don't know why you ask questions, part 10.
Sorry, I was asking a rhetorical question. Is the right of return
Okay.
implying that every person, like even their kids and grandkids, have the right to go back into Israel proper? Is that what that means? Who people are in like Gaza and the West Bank?
So do you know what the right of return is?
Well, I've heard different meanings of it, so I'm curious as
Well,
to
it's
what
pretty
your.
well documented within the UN charters, is that peoples and their direct descendants who were displaced by violence and wartime have the right to return to their homelands once that violence ends in that given area.
So would that be 7 million people?
No, I believe the people currently claiming right to return is roughly 750,000 people of the Nakba refugees.
Okay.
How far that goes into Jordanians and whatnot, right?
Well,
It's
yeah,
interesting, but it's
because
whomever it's the Nakba refugees, the active claimants in at least the ICJ court case was 750,000.
from what I've been told is that if there was if they did do the right of return, it would basically make it so there's not a Jewish majority. So are you sure it's only 700,000? Because there's only
So
two.
wait, that's intriguing.
Because
The
here's the thing.
reason this is interesting because I actually agree that that's the reason they're doing it.
Yeah.
They want to maintain a Jewish majority.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
What?
Racist.
Uh,
If I took actions to maintain a white majority in America, it would properly be understood as racist.
I agree, but can I say something? Here's the thing. Throughout history, and I think what we have people love to ignore is like why did Herzl create Zionism? It wasn't just some random supremacist ideology to just. I think it was
No, it
really.
wasn't any random
Well,
supremacist
let,
ideology.
let
It
me.
just happened to also be a supremacist
Okay, sure. You
ideology.
can call it what you want,
He
but
called Arabs
okay,
dogs.
sure. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely, it was a
Great,
racist
but let me
supremacist
speak.
ideology.
Well, considering here's the thing. If you grow up a Jew, but before Israel, if you grew up as a Jew in any of those Arab countries, you are going to hate Arabs. And if you grew up as a Palestinian in the Gaza Strip, you're going to hate Jews and Israelis. That's just how it works because from what you've seen, the other side hates you. And that's the sad reality that both sides hate each other. But what we have
I
to
mean, that's not
realize,
ubiquitously true.
no,
Once again, there are
but
Palestinian Jews, and there have been Palestinian Jews that
well,
have lived there for a very, very long time,
if any
right? With
side,
actually notably less violence. Under
if
Ottoman times, they lived as a privileged peoples by comparison. There was violence, right? And
well,
they paid
I
extra
think they had an
taxes,
issue with the
but they paid extra taxes for extra rights, right? Like Palestinian Jews and Christians and other people of the book have lived under Muslim rule for quite a
I
while
agree, but
before.
I think the
So
hatred
you're
towards
just that's
Jews.
just not true.
Well, let me speak. I think the hatred towards Jews comes mainly from the Ashkenazis, because it ties into a lot of conspiracies about like the Khazar myth and all that stuff. It ties back into H-man and like the reason why he hated the Ashkenazis and the reason why
But
I
the
think.
majority of Israelis are Mizrahi.
Yes, I
So
know, but they're because it was such a big immigration that, and they don't. A lot of people don't view them as real Jews, even though that's like been debunked and all that stuff. But, anyways, what I was
no,
gonna say
so I'm
was that.
saying when we're talking about the foundation of Israel, right, we're going to talk about who the majority are, is the
But
Mizrahi,
let
and
me
the
get to
big
my point.
issue is actually with the immigration of Ashkenazi, primarily because the Mizrahi are lived in
Yeah,
the Middle East by and large.
but
But
I have a point I'm trying to make. My point is
okay,
that once again, you can call this a supremacist thing nowadays, and I'm not going to disagree with that. I do think it is. There are things that are better for Jews there, but here's the thing: we have to recognize like why Zionism started, and I think it was a history of mass persecution and pogroms.
oh no,
To
I think it was because of anti-Semitism. I think they were anti-Semites.
who?
Most Zionist supporters were anti-Semites. I think Zionism is one of the largest actions of anti-Semitism that has been
Are
universally
you
accepted.
are you trying to like twist the definition to say like Palestinians are Semitic people, or like do
No,
you
no, no,
actually
no. I
define
think
them?
that I think that the evangelical Christians that support Zionism are anti-Semites. I think the British people that supported the Jewish colonial project, right, were anti-Semites. That's why the only Jewish member of parliament during that time voted against funding of the Jewish colonial project, right? Because he viewed it as anti-Semitic and heretical to the Jewish faith,
Okay,
right?
sure.
So a
History.
small, loud minority of Jews pushed up this movement, and then it was co-opted by a bunch of anti-Semites to get Jews out of their country, right? And to fulfill myths that were fundamentally anti-Semitic.
Okay.
Zionism is anti-Semitism. It's not a reaction to it.
Well, so Herzl decided to create the Zionist project or whatever after there was a certain massacre pogrom in France. I don't know exactly what it was. This basically was the final line. They were like, you know what, we're done. We need somewhere to go to call home because not going to be exist in 100 years if this keeps up. And I don't think any rational human's going to deny, I guess, the suffering of the Jews throughout history, and the exilings and all that. But
That was his excuse, yeah.
but here's the thing, and I
Doesn't mean that that's
genuinely
the reason it was
I,
successful.
I disagree with 99% of pro-Israelis because I hate their arguments. Their arguments are always the Jews are indigenous, so we have the right to the land. I don't care who's indigenous. It does not matter. That's the thing we have to recognize. It doesn't matter who's indigenous. What matters is that the Jews won a war in 1948, which established their sovereign borders, and that's what we have to recognize that things change, just like in America.
So, under the claims of Israel, which was made following a UN resolution, right? So, if they're making claims on the base, this is also why I break up international law. The entire claim to sovereignty of Israel, right, is founded on that partition plan in 1948, right? And therefore, built into it is international law. And one of the founding principles of international law since the release of the UN Charter is that territory gained in war is inadmissible in courts of justice. So no, I wholeheartedly disagree with you. Even if you disagree with the morals or the validity of international law, it is a fundamentally hypocritical stance for Israel to one, claim its validity from international law, and then two, claim the rest of its land from a direct violation of international law. Those two things can't be true.
Fair.
Either it needs to decide it's an imperial power, right, and drop that claim of international law, or it needs to, decide to go back to the 1948 borders, right, and drop the other claims. So yeah, I think we
Okay,
agree on
yeah,
that.
I'm not gonna disagree with that. That's fair. But the thing is that like we have currently, I mean, we're not talking about Fatah, we're talking about the H group, and I'm sure Fatah is committed. I mean, the reason why they want Israel won an election was because they were impossible to deal with. But anyways, um, the H group, I mean, we can look at the conflict that we can all agree started on October 7th. This current conflict. Okay, I hate when people are like, "What happened?" Like, no, it was there was more violence on October 7th. Okay, and H group
By
started this
comparison to
current
what?
conflict with war crimes. We can all agree on that. They
Who
committed
did?
H group.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so they committed war crimes, then Israel responds with war crimes. Nobody enforces these war crimes. So what is a war crime? Like genuinely, that's what I'm
I mean,
confused about.
Israel agreed to international law
Okay,
defining war
fair,
crimes.
fair,
That's
great.
on them.
Yes, Israel's.
So who defines it?
I
Israel,
don't
and
look.
Israel
I don't love
broke their own
Israel.
rules.
I don't. Israel's not. I don't love them that much. I don't like their government. They're contradictory, but both sides committed war crimes, okay?
But the
And
thing
nobody's
is I,
enforcing the
I
war.
agree that both sides committed war crimes. The difficulty is one is a democratic, semi-democratically elected government that has international support and American funding. The other one is a terrorist organization that has seized power counter-democratically. So no one is suggesting that we diplomatically support the H group, whereas hundreds of thousands of Americans and other international influences are suggesting that we support Israel. There is no parity in this discussion because what we are talking about is, as outsiders, what do we do? And as outsiders, no one's suggesting we support the H group, but people are suggesting we support Israel. So the question is about this claim. So if you want to talk about parity, let's have parity and not support either, and
Uh,
actively diplomatically work against both.
but then you're holding these people to some moral equivalence, which any rational human's not
But
going to
you
do.
made the more, no, no, you literally just made the moral equivalence.
No, I didn't.
You did. You said, well, both of them commit war crimes. One commits war crimes, the other commits war crimes. One doesn't get held accountable to war crimes, the other one doesn't get held accountable to
Well, no,
war
that's
crimes.
not my
That is
main
a
point.
moral
No,
equivalence.
my main point is that, like, sure, they're war crimes technically, but one side clearly has a more barbaric and nihilistic intent.
Okay, I mean, I would argue that the characterization of the Arab side as barbaristic is just racially motivated, much more than anything in reality. Because if you look at the actions of Israel and Israel's government, yeah, they aren't barbaristic. They're incredibly and sadistically tactile, right? They're incredibly and sadistically systemic. And it's much, much more scary to have a systematically sadistic enemy than something you would characterize as barbaristic. Because what you're looking at is much more impoverished, much less well funded people doing whatever they conceivably can, by comparison to the Israeli side, right, which is using some of the most advanced weapon systems to terrorize a civilian population. Right. So I don't really care if one's barbaristic by your names, which is there's a long, long history of describing Arabs as barbaristic, which I don't necessarily really appreciate. But I don't understand what your point is, right? You made the moral equivalency. I don't think there's any way of getting around that. And I don't think there's a moral equivalency. I don't think there's a moral equivalency between a terrorist organization that was funded by Israel, right, and the IDF, a terrorist organization that is Israel. I don't think so. I view
Okay.
them one as a funded reaction and one as the original action.
It's not a reaction. That's the thing. It's because these people want all of the land, and when,
Israel wants all of the land.
but
The diplomat
sure.
to the UK of Israel just said that a two-state solution was not possible.
Well, I don't. Well, yeah, now it isn't because of the history. But if you look at the 75 years, I
Okay, then
mean,
Israel wants all the
listen,
land.
listen, listen.
Why are you faulting the
You
Palestinians for
see
wanting a
like four.
one-state solution?
You see like 4 or 5 wars with the Palestinians, major wars throughout these 75 years. Okay, and you see that all of them were started. I mean, you could talk about 67, but we both know how it's
Israel started 67.
okay. Under like, but you know why it started.
Technically, yeah, technically they did. And
Considering
technically is
okay,
correct.
so considering Egypt started a war in 48 and started a war in 73, isn't it safe to say
Who started the Russia-Ukraine war?
Russia?
Okay, but America and NATO allies were actively agitating Russia by letting the Balkan state or the Baltic states join NATO. Is that enough of an agitation to justify that America started the war?
Well, you didn't hear my point. Can I explain it?
Sure.
So we'll recognize that. I mean, we can talk about why, but in 1948, Egypt was one of the countries that unprovokingly declared war on Israel.
It wasn't unprovoked.
Okay, they declared war on Israel. In 73, they declared war on Israel as well. Okay, so considering they declared war on Israel 2 times, and in 67, there was a
Did you just say
whole
73?
the Yom Kippur War.
And you're trying to justify Israel's reaction to their actions in 67?
What do you mean?
Continue with your point.
Yeah, my point is that you have very hostile people next to you, in that, you know, it was a preemptive attack, considering they did attack first 2 times, and considering they
But at the
closed the
time in
Suez Canal.
67, they hadn't attacked first 2 times.
But they attacked first once, and they also militarized their
Okay,
border because
this
of.
is why I wanted to get the timing right that
Okay,
you're
sure,
talking
sure.
about.
That's
You know,
yeah, I
like
know.
what?
No, I know. No, but I'm just saying, looking at how the history is played out, it's like these people were never looking for peace, considering that, they militarized their entire border because I think the Saudis got word that Israel was going to it was a false call that they were going to invade. So Egypt militarized their border, and then Israel's claim is that they preemptively striked, and I don't think that's very
Israel did
inaccurate.
preemptively strike.
Yeah, sure. So we can
Yeah.
talk about who started that,
But
but
that's a violation, and like that is a war.
oh my God.
That is a war, actionable war.
International law. It's like under international law, Israel doesn't have the right to defend themselves after October
That's not
7th.
true.
Yeah, it is true because
It's not
international law
true.
is stupid. It is. I've talked to people who say because
And
they
you've talked to
occupy.
people that are incorrect. They have absolutely the right to defend themselves.
No, no,
If
no,
there's a homeland attack, you have the right to defend
no,
yourself.
not against a not. If it's a non-state entity and you occupy the territory, you don't have a right to like. It's so much of stupid shit that because you
You
and
have the right to enter into an occupied territory to neutralize a threat. Absolutely, you do.
okay,
America
okay,
going
maybe
into Pakistan to get rid of Osama was not a violation of international law.
does the U.S. like to follow international law?
No, but I'm saying the entrance into Pakistan,
Why is all you
right,
guys
to get rid
have
of one
international
second, the
law?
entrance into Pakistan to get rid of Osama was not a violation of international law.
Do you think international law is a good moral standard?
You just said something wrong, brother.
I was saying what the pro-Palestinians always say.
Okay, don't move away from it. Like
Well,
it's just simply untrue. Going into a area to neutralize a terroristic threat is not a violation of international law.
okay, yeah, I would agree with you.
Then what you said was incorrect.
I
That is
was
their form of right to defend themselves.
okay, sure. I was voicing what the Palestinian people say a lot in TikTok lives. They're always like, "Oh, you cannot defend yourself against a non-state entity that is
But
in."
what does defense look like against a non-state entity? It doesn't look like the same thing as you would in the Russia-Ukraine war, for example. It's drastically different, right? But whatever. I mean, you just have. I'd love for you to know international law before you critique it. Um,
Sure,
you know,
sure. But
like it's kind of hard for it to.
here's the
It's
thing.
physically
Here's
grating on my soul and eardrums.
okay.
To hear you, critique international law while
I,
actively misquoting and
I'm speaking
misunderstanding
your
it.
side's talking points, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
It's not my side. Talk to me, not my side.
Okay, great.
Um,
Wait, but here's the thing. Until and now, I don't think any solution. I don't think a one-state to two-state nothing's feasible. Israel's going to occupy the shit out of Gaza. They're going to impose an
they've
actual.
occupied Gaza since 2012.
Okay, maybe, sure, rightfully so.
Rightfully so. Under what
Yeah.
rights?
Well, they pulled out. They gave them a chance, and then they just turned it into a
They
piece
gave
of
them a
shit.
chance by funding their jihadists?
Well, it was. They had more. First off, when they came into power, they needed a more rational group than Fatah.
Yeah,
And
and but Israel didn't even think that the charity that later became Hamas was a more rational group. Actually, they precisely supported them because they knew that they were an extremist and unstable group.
I don't think that's the case. I
It
mean, when they started
absolutely is.
funding them, they were a
The
charity
brigade
organization.
general that ran Gaza in the 1980s explicitly said verbatim that Hamas is, unfortunately, an Israeli creation and that they were created to fund the jihadists, right, to counterbalance Fatah and the PLO and actively destabilize Gaza.
Okay, sure.
And
Israel,
Netanyahu in 2019 explicitly admitted the same thing. That he
Israel
let
then turned.
Qatari funding into Hamas, right? Precisely because he supported Hamas internally.
Okay, so why do you think right before? I think it was before Hamas came into power. Israel withdrew and they basically kicked out all the Jews.
So did you
Why?
ever ask? Did you ever look into why they said they did it?
I think it was to give them a chance to build up.
Well, they didn't even claim that.
What was their claim?
They said that it was for ethnographic reasons,
Like what?
like not wanting Arabs in their integral land because they threatened the Jewish majority.
I,
That's the reason that the government at the time
but the
said,
Jewish
right? They
majority
said due to
thing
international pressure and because they wanted ethnographic supremacy in their integral land.
is
So
that.
no, it
I'm
was
not
not
one
for
to
an
like ask for a
impassionate,
source for everything,
caring
but I've never
reason.
heard
It
that.
was because they wanted a Jewish majority like the racist ethno-state they are.
I mean, yeah, I would say they want a Jewish majority, considering that how once again how the history is played out. Why isn't
No,
it?
I know you're going to go on your copium justification rant, right? I don't want the rant every single
Well,
time
do
that I
you think
correct
that
a point of
Jews?
yours. I don't want the rant every time. What I'm saying is that's the reason they made Gaza. So what was your point about Gaza? Because they didn't, in good faith, attempt to nation build in Gaza. Actually, they did the exact opposite, right? They
Well,
they actively destabilized and meddled in the
once
elections in
again,
Gaza.
5 years before they pulled out, I mean, Yasser Arafat was offered almost all of the West Bank and all of Gaza in the form of a state in the Camp
Yeah,
David summit,
of
and
which
they
of which
declined
Yasser
it and then
Arafat
launched an
accepted.
intifada.
He was forced into the Great Compromise of accepting international law regarding the 1967 borders,
Yeah.
which is, by the way, the international position
Why
on
do you
what the
think he
border
declined
should
it?
be. So Yasser Arafat, right, accepted the international position, much to the disgrace of him and his constituents. And then Israel were the ones that denied the reasonable offer.
What was the reasonable offer? The right to
The
return,
reasonable offer was the thing in line with international law and international opinion,
which was the right to
which
return,
was the
right?
1967 borders.
Well, I, I don't think like you can't just return to like these borders. I
You
mean,
can. You literally can. They've
so
pulled out of the
you think
Sinai.
that
They've
would go
pulled out of
well? You
Gaza
think
before. They've
considering,
pulled out of southern Lebanon before. They absolutely can return to previous
yeah,
borders.
they can, but since there's been so much aggression, I don't
Stop
think that's
saying things that
going
you
to
then walk
happen.
back 2 seconds. Think about what you say before you say them.
Well, no, I don't think we can move past the Camp David summit. I don't know a single justification for declining that. I mean, here's the thing: if you were Yasser Arafat right now,
The single justification is it is in violation of
oh,
international law.
oh yes, that's
It
why Yasser, yes,
institutionalizes
that's why
a war
Yasser
crime.
Arafat declined it because he cares so much about international law.
Yasser Arafat declined it precisely because they denied the right of return of Nakba refugees.
But okay,
That was the reason he gave.
let's say Israel is this crazy evil power and you know you're not going to get anything better from them. Why would you not accept it? That's my question. Because
He came in with he made compromise after compromise after compromise after compromise with Israel.
like what? The Oslo Accords that did nothing? Wait, let me ask you a question. If
He
you
made compromise
represented
after compromise because he goes in wanting either a one state or a 1948 borders.
which is not
Right? The
feasible.
1940, it's not realistic because Israel's a genocidal
No,
ethnic
because
state.
the
But
Jewish
one side
majority
being batshit crazy doesn't mean that the other side, not giving into all of their demands, are being ridiculous. Right? You
jeopardizing
realize what you're doing is you're infantilizing Israel to abdicate them of responsibility for their psychotic behaviors. You
Je-
don't have to capitulate to an infant, right, when you're in negotiations with them, just because that infant has a nuke. Okay, you can't characterize the Palestinians as irrational. You can't characterize the Palestinians as crazy simply because they're unwilling to capitulate to absolute and utter idiocy.
no, I don't. I mean, I think the claim and not wanting to jeopardize the Jewish majority is a valid claim, considering
Of racists,
no,
no,
not
I don't think it
racist.
is.
Okay,
I think
but
if I wanted to maintain a
if you
white
look at the
majority, that would be
population,
racist.
if you look at the population from Jews in all of the Arab countries, I mean, it was very high, and now it's around
Yeah, you know what
nothing.
happened to the population of Jews in Arab countries after the foundation of
You're gonna
Israel?
say they voluntarily left because everyone wants to voluntarily leave their
I didn't
life.
say that. No, I am not going to. This is why I say argue with me and not the people made up in your head.
All right. I've heard so many bad talking points. I'm just like, I'm okay. Sorry.
I too have heard many bad talking points in about the last 20 minutes. I don't think they voluntarily left by and large. I think they faced a incredibly large amount more violence once the Zionist colonial project started claiming that they represented all Jews, and then they started committing incredibly horrible war crimes in Jewish names. So
Okay.
yeah, the Jews in Arab nations in North Africa, right, especially faced a lot more oppression following the Zionist state. And that's
Look,
that's why we see a huge amount of exodus of them, right?
I want to ask
Whereas
you
if
a
we actually
question.
look at the ethnic tensions between them, there was ethnic tensions between Jews and Arabs, right, in other countries, prior to Israel, the foundation of Israel, right? But it's on a whole different scale and a whole different level than what we're seeing between Israel and the Arab countries and the Jews currently in Arab countries now. There's a whole different scale. They live semi-peacefully side by side for hundreds of thousands of years in these areas.
So
So
here's the thing.
no,
I think we fundamentally are going to disagree on. Do you think that There can be a two-state solution, and there can be a solution in which the Palestinians get less, that is less than all of the land. Do you think there is a solution, and that you will support that solution? Because would you, if you represent the Palestinians, would you accept, knowing that the history is going to unfold this way, would you accept the partition plan?
Would I accept the partition plan?
Yeah, you get like 45%
I
of the
don't think
land.
it's relevant to go back to it.
Well, I'm just
What I
curious.
will say is,
What
starting
are you
from
willing to
now,
accept?
I agree with the PA's position, at least in part, right? The PA's current position is the return to the 1967 borders. So the Palestinian Authority, along with Fatah and the PLO, right, have made it extraordinarily clear and consistently clear that that is their position. And those are the representatives of the West Bank currently. Unfortunately, Gaza has been taken over illegally by Hamas.
Does that mean giving
So,
back the land
so
to
once
Egypt
again,
and
you
Jordan?
attempt to characterize Palestinians as these irrational negotiators. Well, currently, the actual representatives internationally recognized of the Palestinian people simply want the 1967 borders, which a huge amount of their sovereign territory was taken from them illegally. But yeah, that's the position they
Okay,
would
does
take.
that
Do I think it's possible? No, because Israel's a genocidal ethno state, and they will attempt to land grab any land they have the diplomatic and military might to do so, right? Because that is required to maintain their ethnostatic situation. Um, so no, I think there's an issue fundamentally in that area, and I think that issue is the current state of Israel. I think a two-state solution could exist if we fundamentally changed, basically all of the founding principles and understandings of Israel.
would the 1967 borders entail that Egypt and Jordan would then occupy the Strip and the West Bank, or
Not necessarily.
would it give sovereignty to like the PLO over the land?
It would be interesting to see how they end up doing a power sharing. I think it would probably
Because
look a lot more like an Arab trustee state split amongst Arab states.
considering that it's pretty clear that none of the Arab countries care about the Palestinians, why is there no why is there no being critical of Egypt or
I mean, it's
Jordan?
hilarious to suggest that Jordan doesn't care about the Palestinians when roughly 70% of Jordan is Palestinian.
Well, once again, it's like, what is a Palestinian? The thing is this.
Well, you made a claim and it's wrong.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, when the refugees came to Jordan, I don't know what year it was, but they tried to overthrow the government and then they got exiled to Lebanon. They don't. I don't think they're big. I mean, currently, yeah, it's a very
I mean,
high
roughly
population of
70% of
Palestinians. But
Jordan is Palestinian,
let's
so it's
talk about
difficult to exile 70% of your population, brother.
let's talk about Egypt. I mean, they're not letting any refugees in. It
Did you
doesn't
ask
seem
Egypt
like.
why they're not letting refugees in?
Well, I know why, but it doesn't seem like
Why? Wait, so what's the reason for that?
I would. Well, I'd say it's two reasons. First one being a security threat,
Okay.
and the second one being, I think, once once the Palestinians from Gaza go into Egypt, I think it kind of indicates that like, oh, they were defeated and they got kicked out, and it's like that. Is that why?
Because
Do you think?
Israel will never let them back in.
Sure. I mean,
It'll be Nakba Part 2.
no, but
That's
I
their
don't think
stated
Israel really
reason.
wants the Gaza Strip necessarily. I don't think like. I
No, I
mean,
just don't. I think they don't want Palestinians more. So
well,
once again, y'all demonize Arabs for either their reactions or the direct actions of Israel. The issue is that if they take refugees, Israel will not respect the rights of those refugees in their homeland.
I mean, do you think that the goal of Israel is to ethnically cleanse the Arabs?
Yeah.
Because
Not just the Arabs, the Palestinians
well,
precisely.
Palestinian
I
is
think
an
they're fine
ethnicity.
generally with Jewish Arabs.
Okay, no, because here's the thing: Palestinians on ethnicity. Ethnicity is Arab. Okay, so what we have to
I mean,
recognize.
no, that's categorically untrue. There are lots of different sub-ethnicities within Arab,
Yeah,
and
but a
Palestinian is at
Palestinian
the very
identity
least
is
a
a
national
nationality.
identity.
But when we refer
Also,
to ethnic,
ethnic cleansing can apply to any amount of subgroups. It can apply to a religious subgroup. It can apply
okay,
to a
sure,
national
great.
subgroup. It can apply to an
So
ethnic subgroup.
why isn't
And
it okay?
Palestinians are both an ethnic subgroup and a national subgroup.
So why isn't Israel's first step to the cleansing to remove the Arabs in their country who aren't Jewish?
It's a little more clear, isn't it? And also, they have consistently been at the face of the ICC, right? Consistently attacked for their treatment of Arabs and Palestinians within their own lands.
Well, I think every Arab Israeli I've spoke with who's not Jewish, this is my anecdotal experience, but I've not met a single Arab Israeli who dislikes Israel, who doesn't think they're
Are you
treated
speaking to
equally.
Palestinian Israelis or are you speaking to Arab Israelis?
I'm speaking about Israeli citizens who aren't Jewish.
Crazy, wild. That's not what we're talking about.
What are we talking about?
Because hear me out, there are Jewish Palestinians, and there have been
I'm
for
talking about
thousands of
Israeli
years.
citizens who aren't Jewish. It could be a
So
Palestinian.
that
It could
doesn't
be
mean they're
anyone.
Palestinian.
Okay, Palestinian. Yeah, this is why I'm
We
confusing.
can't go back now. So the thing is if we actually want to talk about, I didn't care in the first place. Your anecdotes are literally meaningless. Um, if we talk about Israel's treatment of Palestinians within their lands, yeah, it's atrocious, right? Like there have been multiple cases in the Israeli Supreme Court, right, in the international courts, condemning Israel for their treatment of Palestinians within their lands. And once again, the Nakba refugees are the perfect example of this. The only difference between a Jew claiming the right of return under the law of return, right, in Israel, and the Nakba refugees, number one, is that it's been a few hundred years. And number two, that one is Jewish and one is Palestinian.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it ties back to the point of. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm not going to say
But
you're
the
not.
thing is that is a mistreatment of Palestinians that should and legally are Israeli citizens.
Okay, let's compare the Arab. Let's compare the Israeli citizens who are Arab, have no Jewish rights. Okay, let's compare them to every single Middle Eastern country besides Lebanon in which they have zero rights. Not a single country they have rights in.
Sorry, am I suggesting we give military and diplomatic aid to those other Middle Eastern countries? Is that what I'm up here doing?
Well, the point is this: the Middle East is a shitbox
The point
anyway.
is that you're making a whataboutism that is arbitrary.
Well, let
Do you
me
know what
ask
a
you a
whataboutism
question.
is?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then let's not commit one.
Well, it's a valid thing because
No, it's not.
Arabs, we can all recognize that Arabs have the most rights in Israel than in any other country because they have
Okay,
zero.
so first of all, I'm just simply not going to engage in this discussion
Why?
because it
Because
actually doesn't matter,
it does.
right?
Because
Because
Arabs
I
have
can condemn
zero
Saudi
rights in
Arabia
every
for their
single
human
other
rights
country.
violations just as much as I can condemn Israel for their human rights
If you live in a
violations.
monarchy or a dictatorship, you have no rights, not a single right. You have no rights.
I'm once again, who cares? 2.0. That's not the discussion we're having.
Okay, so you're condemning them more than Israel, I'm guessing, right?
I mean, this isn't a discussion of those places.
Well, it's
This is why I
valid.
say it's a whataboutism. Do you know what a whataboutism is?
Kind of, not really.
Okay, so let's say, for example, we were having a discussion about Israel, and I said that Israel mistreated Arabs. And then you said, well, what about Qatar? They mistreat their citizens. What about Saudi Arabia? They mistreat their citizens. What about Iran? They mistreat their citizens.
Well,
See how that would be a whataboutism?
sure, no, but it's
Because
not
the
because in
fact that
Israel they don't
Iran
treat
does
their
it, one second,
citizens
the
that bad.
fact that Iran does it doesn't mean that Israel doing it is any
Wait,
better.
I need to clarify
Those
to the
two things
comments.
have absolutely nothing
Okay,
to do
okay.
with each other.
I need to clarify to the comments. They don't understand what I was saying. Just because you live in the UAE and you're a millionaire because they give you a bunch of oil money to make you happy, doesn't mean you have any rights. Because at the end of the day, you're living in a monarchy in which you could wake up the next day with no rights, no money, and you get unalive because there's no laws that you're just living in a monarchy. So simply, you have no rights if you live in a monarchy. That's that simple.
This is the
But
same amount of brain deadness that it would be if I said, look, if you're living in the UK, there are no laws, there are no rules. You're living in a monarchy. Ultimately, if the king wants to come down and just take all your shit, they can. Right? No, of course not. There are laws
the
in
queen
Saudi
has no
Arabia. There are
power.
enforcement agencies in Saudi
Well, they
Arabia.
have whole
There are multiple
parliament
different
and
modes of government and types of government in Saudi Arabia.
they.
Right? Like the monarchy would obviously lose their power if they just started taking everyone's money.
But
Right? I'm
in the
not saying that the
UK,
monarchy has no power. I'm saying just they don't have ubiquitous and total power.
okay,
Look,
sure. Let's talk
no,
about
this is
Israel
a
then.
drastic
All right,
misunderstanding and
great.
oversimplification of Middle Eastern
Let's
politics,
ignore.
like I would expect from a person that
Great.
describes Arabs as barbaristic.
I never did that. I called Hamas barbaristic, which I don't think is wrongful. Okay. Yeah,
Wrongful.
let's talk about Israel because I mean, I think we're just going to fundamentally disagree. I think Arab Israelis are treated amazing, and the thing is this: in what
Amazing by what standard?
by I think Western standards, considering they
By
serve.
Western standards?
Let
That's
me let
not
me
true.
finish. Let me
I mean,
finish.
the Western Court
Let
of
me
Human
finish.
Rights described them as
Let,
atrocious.
let me
Amnesty
finish.
International, a Western
Let,
organization, described them as atrocious.
let me
So
finish.
did the Human Rights Watch, a Western
Let me
organization.
finish. Let me finish. You have Arab Israelis in Supreme Court, in Parliament, in any highest job possible. You have Arab Israelis who are so passionate about being Israeli, they actually voluntarily serve in the military, okay? And they don't have to. They actually, it's a bonus about being an Arab Israeli. You're not forced to serve in the military. Here's the thing. When you speak to every, and I encourage you to go do this, speak to Arab Israelis and ask them, how is your experience in Israel? 99.9% of them are going to say it's amazing and I'd rather live here than anywhere else in the Middle East. So you're just a random white guy from America. And I think you're speaking for all of the Arab Israelis. How about you go speak to some Arab Israelis and ask them about their opinions? Because all you can refer to is international law. But when you look at the reality of it and you talk to Arab Israelis who are so passionate about living in Israel that they serve in the military and come online to talk about how it's not an apartheid, everyone's misunderstanding this, sure, I'm not going to disagree. Being a Jew in Israel is better, just like being a white guy in America is better. There's racism that exists. There's racism that exists in Israel, but under law, it's pretty equal. It's 99% equal. You can talk about, I guess, like the Orthodox Jewish villages, like those that I don't support any of that. You can talk about, I don't really know what else there is. There's not much else. I mean, they're pretty equal. I mean, that's pretty much how it is. And people love to just dismiss the fact that all of these Arab Israelis love their lives in Israel. They're treated equally. Now you can point out like a few laws that benefit Jews because yeah, it's a Jewish state, but that doesn't mean Arabs can't live there. It's the whole point of Zionism was for a Jewish majority to keep the Jews safe. But that doesn't mean that Arabs can't live there amazingly. I mean, sure, yes, I'm not going to ignore that. Yes, if you want to call it a supremacist state, I'll say it too. Fine. Yes, if you're a Jew there, you have more privileges. Fair enough. But I I think it's for a reason, and I don't think that it's that harmful to the Arab Israelis, considering them it's the Middle East.
Okay, the wonderful monologue, where I think about two things were said: tokenization of Arab Israelis that have been, either submitted to an incredible amount of propaganda from Israel, right, and agree with you, that's fine. And I guess minimization and dismissal of the things that even you have to admit are done against Arab Israelis. And I guess three, misdirection of the conversation, because we weren't really talking about Arab Israelis, we're talking about the destruction of Palestinians, right? And the mistreatment of citizens who are Palestinian within their country, right? Not just Arab Israelis, because as both you and I said, most actual people in Israel are Mizrahi Jews, of whom a huge majority are Arab. Okay? So we're not talking about Arab Israelis. So this whole entire rant that you got annoyed at me interrupting genuinely doesn't matter at all. The whole
I
point
did
was
not do
literally
that.
irrelevant, and it was quite offensive to tokenize the Arab Israelis in the first place. When
I,
once again, Human Rights Watch has
I mean
has
non-Jews.
called out specifically the treatment of Arabs within Israel, right, as an atrocity. But to get the talking to get the conversation just a little bit back on track, we're talking about the treatment of Palestinians within Israel, and it's incredibly clear that the rights of Palestinians within Israel are fundamentally different, right? There is an international court case, right, taken by, I know these are the only people you care about, Israeli citizens, right? And guess what? Those Israeli citizens just happen to be Palestinian, and they alleged that the IDF forces, right, and Israeli authorities detained and mistreated the Palestinians who were detained to such an extent that they ended up dying. And there was an international investigation of this, right, that eventually condemned Israel. So, no, I don't know why you went on this long ass rant about Arab Israelis, right? Yeah, it's in the Middle East. They're going to have a lot of Arabs, right? And they're going to treat them differently. And actually, they don't have a huge problem with Arab Jews, as I've said multiple times. They don't actually even have a huge problem with Arab Christians or Arab Muslims. The people they have problems with are Palestinians who are Arab, but not all the Arab. All the Arabs. This is a category error. The whole rant that you got very mad at me
Wait.
interrupting was nonsense. Why did you waste everyone's time?
What I mean by the Arabs who I'm talking about, I am talking about Palestinian Israeli citizens, okay? I sure, not the
Oh,
Jews,
okay,
of course
cool.
not.
Then we can talk about the Palestinian and Israeli citizens who have brought multiple international court cases and alleged hundreds of abuse claims against them.
Well, here's what we have to real. Are you talking about when you're talking about this stuff? Are you referring to like the West Bank or Gaza? Because I'm talking about purely in Israel proper Israeli citizens. Are we on the same track?
Yeah, well, now that you're using the correct words, yes, this is what I'm referencing anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think we just I mean, look, once again, I stated in my thing, I'm sure there's a lot of racism. I went to Israel, I didn't see a lot, but I'm sure it exists, just like it exists everywhere. I'm sure there's issues. It's not perfect, but I don't think it's that bad. And considering, once again,
What is that bad? By what bar? By what
what is
metric?
that
And
bad
who are
when you
you to
don't have?
minimize people's pain and suffering
I'll tell you
when
what's
people are
that bad.
literally killed in detention under Israel?
I'll
How
tell
much
you
is
what's
that
that bad.
bad?
What's that bad is living in one of these surrounding countries in which you don't have rights. That's bad. I think having voting rights
Why
and
is
being
that the bar? You said by Western metrics.
a Palestinian could be the prime minister of Israel. Like, I mean, that doesn't exist in a
What's that bad? You're so
because
incredibly slippery here.
that
What
doesn't
is that
exist in a
bad?
supremacist state like you're talking about it to be. I mean, sure, I agree that you can call it a supremacist state. That's fine, but the way you're describing it is just completely irrational to what Israel is, in my opinion.
Once again, you can restate it. You're not answering my question. You said it's not that bad by even Western standards. You're wrong. It is horrendous by Western standards.
Okay,
That's why it's been
so
condemned by
talk
Western
about the
standards. Are
horrendous
you
way.
just saying it's not that bad by the other states that have been implemented by the West to actively be unstable and extremist? It's not that bad by comparison, right, to the regime in Iran that was implemented following a series of terrorist attacks by the US. It's not that bad by the dictatorial monarchy in Saudi Arabia, right, that was institutionalized and supported by the West precisely because of their horrendous treatment of their citizens. It's not that bad by comparison to the Bahrainians, the Qatari, right, who were also institutionalized by the West, or the Jordanians who have active Western support, right, or Egypt who is bullied into totalitarian rule by once again the West, right? Is that the bar that you're not that bad?
Well, I, what can you lit like? Can you list? Because sure, once again, what I said, I'm sure there's hate crimes. Hate crimes happen everywhere, but a hate crime is not legislation. I mean, can you really list to me like a ton of legislation against in Israel proper
You're
non-Jewish
just going to ignore that whole
citizens?
point. What's your bar? I've told you. The
Well, I'm asking
ICC
you,
has
what is so
condemned them for their
terrible? I
treatment.
don't
One
know.
second. I've told you multiple times. The ICC has condemned them for their
For
treatment
what?
of
So list
Palestinians,
some things. Give me
Of
examples.
Palestinian Israelis under that.
Like
Let's
what?
talk about the Samaritan people. The
Give me a
Samaritans, they
single
originally
example.
denied their right of return.
Is all you can say. Oh, no, I'm talking about Israeli citizens. Can you list some like rights that the non-Jewish citizens just
I'm
are?
not talking about rights. I'm talking about treatment. I'm talking about hate. I'm talking about people dying.
Okay, you could talk about hate crimes, but that's not legislation. I'm talking about like legally imposed laws
I'm
that
talking about actions of
segregate.
the executive, brother.
So like what? Talk about it in Israel proper.
Racists are, wait, sorry. Racists are just a little smarter than to write down, right, different rights codified of their minorities. The racists have gotten just like a skosh smarter, everyone. Just to update. Same motherfuckers that say there's no racism in America. Guys, point to one thing a black person can't do in America. Yeah, because the racists have gotten a little smarter.
Okay, so
It
would you?
comes down to the
Okay,
systems that cause executive action to be fundamentally different regarding Arabs and Israelis.
okay,
And the most racist thing that they still have done, because they're not that smart, right, is denying the Nakba refugees. Those are Israeli
those,
citizens, as far as I'm concerned,
no, they're not.
and they are denying their right of
They're
reentry. They are
not
denying
Israeli
their
citizens.
homeland.
So once again, you can't answer my question because it's like when you talk
I,
about.
I've answered your question.
Well, no, you
There
haven't. I'll tell you
aren't de
why.
jure. They
Notice
are
how.
not. One second. There are not de jure different treatments of Palestinian and Israeli citizens, with the exception of entrance into Area C. Right. So Palestinian and Israeli citizens have different rights of return regarding the entrance into certain parts of the West Bank and of Gaza. Right. So if you're a Palestinian and Israeli within Israeli citizenship, if you enter Gaza, you must sign away all your rights, whereas Israeli you don't. Similar thing with Area A within Gaza. Okay, so that's that. There is a de jure difference there, but that's semi-justifiable on the
Let me
basis
speak
of the
real quick.
Oslo Accords. So there are some de jure differences. You pretend like I can't answer your question. There's the answer, right? But with the exception of that, there aren't many de jure differences. What I'm saying is that there are de facto differences, and the de jure differences apply mainly to the people that Israel doesn't even recognize as citizens, but internationally ought to be.
Okay, I mean, dude, like We just fundamentally disagree. I mean, you think that black people in
Yeah, you
America.
fundamentally disagree with reality. Did I
No, I
answer your
don't. That's
question?
actually you.
Did
You
I,
think.
one second, did I answer your question?
No.
Okay, let me try again then.
No, let me
There
ask the
are
question again
some,
because you
sorry,
didn't answer it.
I'll try it again and then tell me how I can do. There are de jure differences in the treatment of them within the West Bank and the treatment of them entering Gaza. Okay, there are de jure differences with the recognition of their rights of return into West Bank and into Gaza, as well as with the Nakba refugees. The Nakba refugees you're going to ignore because you don't consider them Israeli citizens, but I do, and so does the international community. Right? So those are the three differences, right? As to that, I agree that when we just look at those three, they look relatively minimal. And I actually agree that they're relatively minimal with the exception of the Nakba refugees, but you're going to kind of like tenth that because you don't really think they're citizens, and that wasn't the aim of your question. But when we talk about the de facto differences, then we can really start interestingly talking about how the executive branch, the police, the IDF, and the extremists who are in the West Bank, for example, utterly brutalize even Palestinian Israeli citizens. Right, that is well documented and well understood, and has been the subject of many court cases. So de jure, not so many differences, right, and de facto, huge amount of different treatments. And also, hate crimes are legislation when you are not prosecuted for hate crimes, when it is the consistent prosecutorial discretion choice to not prosecute you for hate crimes. That is a legislation choice, even if it's not written on ink.
Would you compare the treatment of Palestinians in Israel who are citizens to black people in America? Do you think it's on like a similar level?
I don't think that's helpful. Once again,
Well, I'm just asking, I'm just
I'm not
curious.
going to engage in a useless question.
Well, no, because I think black people are treated 100% equally in America. I think Palestinians are actually treated worse in Israel than black people are treated in America. But anyways, because you were talking about how racism exists in America, and sure, but once again, we just fundamentally like, don't agree on these things.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna. Did I answer your question?
Sure, but I don't think de jure has any like validity. Because once again, you really couldn't state. Oh, sorry, de facto. You couldn't really state any like legislation within Israel, and you talked about hate crimes.
I did. I stated too the treatment of them within the West Bank and Gaza,
But
entrance
once
and
again, you can't
exit.
talk about Israel proper because there is no.
No, that is Israel proper. That's re-entry into Israel proper.
Are you saying Arab, like Palestinian and Israeli citizens who leave Israel and then try to come back? Are you talking about that?
Yeah.
Like go where? Like to America or what?
Into Area A in the West Bank.
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't support Israel and what they do in the West Bank. I don't like the
No,
settlement.
but that's you didn't understand what I said. So when you bitch and moan about me not answering, like it seems to just be you actually not understanding what I'm saying.
You could say that. Sure, I'm not gonna disagree with that. Sure, yeah, sure. There's some differences, but once again,
Okay, so that is a de jure difference. Okay,
I don't know how I can define
it's a
not
racist
bad,
de jure
but
difference.
it's not that bad. Just like it.
Okay, exactly. Your next move is minimize, right? This is the classic move of a propagandist, and it's really easy. Deny, deny, divert, minimize, right? First you denied, you didn't answer my question. Then you diverted, moved on. Then you minimized when put into a corner. That is bad faith. I don't know why you're approaching this in bad faith. Approach this actually attempting to learn. Who cares if it's not that bad? It's wrong.
Yeah, I mean that's why I don't.
That's not the discussion to be had. Because I'm not saying we should fund Saudi Arabia. I'm not saying we should fund Iran. Right. So when you're saying it's not that bad, it doesn't matter. Because that's not the discussion. The discussion is if we should fund and support this state.
Yeah, I mean that. Okay.
And if they're doing something wrong, that's relevant.
Yeah, that's fair, and I agree. I think Israel.
Okay, then stop minimizing it because it's useless and it's genuinely quite frustrating.
Well, because my opinion still stands though, because of all the Palestinians who I've talked to who live in proper Israel, they love their experience. And I'm not gonna. You could say I'm tokenizing them. I'm just literally speaking from my experience, from people I've talked to, from my friends. Yes,
I'm just going to say I don't care about your personal anecdotes.
Okay, fair.
So I'm like I'll take it as a micro nap whenever you mention one.
So go do it for yourself. Talk to some. But I'll say this: I think there could be work done to Israel.
I speak to lots of Palestinians, brother.
I don't think their current government.
They just unfortunately happen to be in the occupied areas rather than like Israel proper occupied areas.
I think there's work that needs to be done, but yeah, I just don't think we're going to agree. So I don't see where this is going. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you that there's work that needs to be done. I think you hold it to a higher level of extreme than I do. I think we both. I do. I'm not going to I think you have a rightful reason to express that feeling. I do think it is a bit irrational, considering that you couldn't really list legislation within Israel other than like two things that don't really have much effect. So I'm not going to minimize it. I'm going to recognize it. I'm going to say that Israel needs to be worked on. But I think at the end of the day, we're just going to hold it to different standards. I don't think it's that extreme. You do.
In the same breath that you minimize it, you say you're not going to minimize it. Wonderful. I don't think we're going to agree on it either. It's an incredible amount of, I don't know, obfuscation. But then I appreciate coming up, and I'll see you later.
All right, have a good one, bro.
You too. Who said check DM? Check my DM where? Alabas? Oh, yeah. Thank you for those. I don't check my DMs typically in here. But okay. Thank you. Alabas. Okay. Um, so let's get this bread, everyone. Also, isn't my healing looking so good? Okay, so keep on sending likes. I'll say that. I will do my classic shill just because I need to get more viewers, more people on here, always better. This is not like a good. Oh no, it really doesn't function, does it? Anyway, okay. Keep on sending likes. Thank you so much. If you don't follow me already, do take this second. Go to the link in my bio and follow me on YouTube. If you could follow me on YouTube, that would be great because I upload these lives, and the best thing you can do is like repost clips. I don't know. It'd be great because get more of this out here. Get to talk about more. And yeah, go out and go to Palestinian marches. Go support Palestinian businesses. And call your representative to call for a ceasefire. Um, Okie dokie. Well, let's get on with this. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to people sending gifts that boost the live quite a lot. That's the best thing you can do for the live, honestly. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Hello, you're on. You're on live. Oh, unmute yourself. I thought your thing wasn't working. Hello, unmute yourself. I'll send you an invite. There we are. Not really working, brother. Wait a second. Okay, well, that one looked good. Send a re-request if you. Oh, thank you so much, Slay. Thank you for the gifts. That's very green. Hello, you're muted.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
How you doing?
Good. Living, laughing, loving.
Can I ask you a few questions before we start, just to get some general knowledge about you?
Sure, Oscar, how old are you?
I'm 26.
Slay.
Where you from?
I'm from North Carolina.
Cool. And where are you in life? Like after uni, in
I'm in
studies,
uni.
college? What you studying?
Law.
Oh, nice. Cool. What state do you live in?
I live in North Carolina.
Okay, cool. So Will, so for someone living in the US, like, what was your thoughts of in the Iranian parliament when they were when they were shouting "Death to America" and "Death to Israel"?
Expected.
Okay, but so would you think it's like a national security for the US and Israel to
Do I
kind
think
of?
Iran is a national security threat? Yes.
Yeah. So I think the US and Israel has that in common, and that's why I would say it's the funding has like common interests.
Yeah, so I don't think genociding the Palestinian people is justified on American national security interests.
So just to clarify, you're saying that what Israel is doing now in Gaza is genocide
Yeah,
by
by the international definition of genocide, they're taking illegal, life-ending actions to either displace or destroy an entire, in part or in whole, an ethnic group within a certain area.
but they're targeting Hamas. So like I'm
Well,
I'm
if
not
they
saying
do,
there's
they
not.
have fucking stormtrooper aim, um, because they're hitting a whole lot of civilians, especially when they kill civilians point blank. It's difficult to say they're targeting Hamas when they point blank unalive, um, you know, civilians. Thank you so much for the gifts. That really helps the live. Thank you so much.
I wouldn't say point blank and these like
I mean,
these
we
are
have a video.
things.
Al Tajira just released a video of them point blank unaliving women and children.
Can you send me that?
I mean, not
Like off,
currently. You're free to look it
not
up.
currently, but after I'd like to see that.
Hmm.
But would you say are you claiming that like under international law, in your view, whatever happened on the 7th of October should just be like no retaliation, or are you open to some retaliation, or
Well, do
if
you think that what
any
happened on
sort?
October 6th, 5th, 4th should have happened with no retaliation?
What do you mean?
The illegal occupation and the brutalization of Palestinian women and children. Thank you so much. That really gets it out to more of the people.
In Gaza, there was
Um,
an occupation on the 5th of October. The Israel pulled out of
Absolutely, an
the.
illegal blockade. A blockade constitutes occupation.
I disagree with that. Like I
Well, the
can.
UN agrees with me, so it's difficult to argue with them, isn't it?
No, but you do agree that there's a difference between like what's going on in the West Bank and in Gaza in regards to like occupation or blockade.
I agree there's a different type of occupation going on.
Okay, so you can call it a different kind of occupation. I'll agree with you that it's a blockade, and if a
And so
terrorist.
could the UN, and so could the documents that they signed on to.
No, for sure, but if there's a terrorist organization living next to you, I think we'd be responsible to do a blockade and see what goes in and out.
Not just see, almost entirely limit to the point of calling for Palestinians to go on a diet. Right, that's the despicable part. It's not just the blockade, right? It's the actual blockade. It's the air, land, and sea limitation of their food and humanitarian aid. Um, but importantly, let's talk about October 7th, right? Y'all use this as the excuse all the time, but more Palestinians have died in this conflict on orders of magnitude than Israelis ever would in October 7th or any type of other terrorist attack. And secondarily, the actions Israel's taking is not de-escalation, it is not de-radicalization, and it is not stabilization of the area. It is actually directly destabilizing the area and radicalizing the youth, right, across nations against them. That will only incite more violence against Israel. Right. There are ways to reduce terrorism in areas, and that is not what this is. So when you bitch and moan about October 7th, well, what I say is you shouldn't have funded it in the first place. Israel funded what later became Hamas in 1980s, and they tacitly supported Hamas in internal politics up until at least 2019, right? So if you don't want something to unalive you, don't give them the, gun.
So that I totally agree with you, and I think that was as you know, Israel's a democracy, and a lot of people here don't agree with what our government did in the past. And I actually agree with you that funding terrorists is a stupid way to stop terrorism. So I would agree with you on that point.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where I come from. Is there? The question is, why did they fund it? To have an excuse for precisely what they're doing now.
So I would disagree with that. Although I disagreed with, I wouldn't fund them, but the quote unquote was that the general idea is that if the people have an economic and a good future, they would be less likely to defer to terrorism because everyone's happy and living well. That's like basically why you would want um, people to live like a happy and a good life in that situation. And I agree with you. It didn't work out. It worked out horribly.
Yeah, but I think they knew that. I mean, in 1980, they explicitly made it clear that they funded, what became Hamas and were jihadists at the time to destabilize the PLO and Fatah, right? So they were
So
destabilizing the government as a whole.
I was talking more about like recent months, like months before October or in 2019, as you stated, with money coming in from Qatar and letting that money go in and hoping it was to build a better economic and society for the Palestinians living in Gaza. Um, and it's a shame it didn't work out.
Well, I think they continued their policy of destabilization. But let's talk about what they're doing now. Do you support what they're doing now?
So yeah, so I do. I think it's you keep saying that we bitch and cry about October the 7th, but that's the only reason why it is what's happening now from my point of view. Like if there wasn't October 7th, then I'd totally be on your side. What they're doing now is like
But the thing is there was brutalization of the Palestinians prior to that.
so when you talk about the Palestinians, like there's different areas they live in, but I'm specifically talking about Gaza.
Yeah, there was an illegal blockade on Gaza. There was Operation Protective Edge. There was Operation Cast Lead, which involved an illegal like semi-occupation and illegal military force within Gaza, right?
But but as I explained before, like it seems logical if there's a terrorist organization that came to power there that you would put a blockade on there. It's not that they put a blockade and
But
then they
those
became.
actions include Palestinian deaths, right? Why did they brutalize when the Palestinians peacefully protested, right? Like there was brutalization of the Palestinians in Gaza when they walked up to the wall peacefully. So I disagree that this is really a reaction to 2007. I think they're using October 7th as a excuse, and I'm
Uh,
done
uh,
falling for their excuses.
okay, but are you? Because I have heard other views, and I just want to clarify this isn't yours. You're not saying like October 7th was an inside job or something. You're saying it happened. It was horrible. It was a terrorist attack. But now, given that it happened, they're using it as an excuse.
I'm saying they wanted something like it to happen. I'm not saying they made it. I'm not saying they planned it. I'm not saying they intended it, right? But I'm saying they wanted violence in that area, and that is what happened when they wanted violence in the area. There's no other reason to fund jihadists like they did.
Okay, so I agree with you. There was a mistake for them to fund them. But the
I don't
initial
think it was a mistake. I think they knew precisely what they wanted. I think they knew precisely what they were doing.
I'm saying from my point of view and your point of view that it was a mistake. Like looking from the side, like you
Oh no, I
can.
don't think it was a mistake. Sorry, I think it was an action of evil people. Right. I think mistake is the wrong word for what I'm
I'm
describing
saying,
it as.
given the
I,
premise
I,
that
I
you
think it
want,
was a crime. I think it was a despicable action. But yeah, I understand what you're saying here.
yeah. So as someone living in Israel, I would also say it's a crime for funding them, and a lot of Israelis would feel the same. But how do I put it this way? I'm saying if you've got women, children, and young men kidnapped and in the Gaza Strip now, with somewhere between 30 to 40,000 terrorists who are also in power. Would you say there's a spec like what would you say would be like the ideal situation would be, you know, zero civilian casualties. Like that I totally agree. And if there was a magic button that could do that, I think everyone would hit it.
I don't think Israel would.
Okay. So you're saying that it's in the Israelis government's kind of like
Policy to
agenda.
kill civilians, yeah.
So I strongly disagree with that.
I think that's very clear by their actions. There's a reason that there's an order of magnitude more women and children killed in this conflict than most other conflicts, even against other terrorist organizations. There's a reason more women and children have been killed. What's the statistic? In this conflict than the rest of the other conflicts in the Middle East for the past, what, 5, 10 years, something like that? It's an absurd amount. It's an absurd amount of women and children killed. More in Syria. That's a fight again between like 5 terrorist organizations, right? When America attacked Kabul, right, which was controlled by the Taliban, we killed way fewer women and children than that. I don't support the attack of Kabul, right? But it's fundamentally a part of that. An Israeli minister said that nukes were on the table. You
So
don't get to that conclusion for any care of Palestinian people, and you don't really even get there for care of Israelis.
yeah.
You get there for racist bloodlust.
Yeah. So that particular politician was really called out, and I personally don't agree with him. I know that a lot of people also called him out,
No, I know,
and I
because he exposed too much. He was mask off.
no, just you don't do that. Like you
I have
don't.
no doubt that his particular verbiage is unpopular. What I'm saying is the fact that those are your extremists, right, tells you something about your centrists, right? So what extremists you have informs what non-extremists you have, because can only be so far.
No, you've got outliners. Like outliners. I don't think define where the average or the
But
mean
he's
of the.
not. He's still a part of the government.
Yeah, but he's like in political terms, he's an extreme like outliner. I'd say he's not like I wouldn't. I understand
No,
where
I
you're
know, but
coming
he's
from.
not. He's not an outlier. He's an extremist.
Yeah, but I think his views in
So
that
he
particular
pushes that
scenario.
edge, right? But that doesn't mean that he's totally random. There is no one else that agrees with him. There's a whole party that agree with him that are in coalition government.
So a lot of the parties
So I'm not
like
saying everyone agrees with him. I'm not even saying a majority of people agree with him, but I'm saying a majority of people fall somewhere in a spectrum in relation to him, and I think that's equally despicable. So no,
so
this is
they
where it
might
comes
call
down
it.
to, well, you have to look at these actions that they're taking and really, with a fresh eye, decide if you think they care about Palestinian lives at all. And it's really uncompelling to me to think they ever did when they said that Palestinians need to go on a diet.
So
When
I'll
they're
give you
some of
my
the poorest, most densely packed peoples in the world.
I'll give you my perspective on that. I think if on one side of Gaza was all the Hamas members, and on the other side of Gaza, zero Hamas members and all the Palestinian civilians, I think you'd have zero casualties and the war would be over very soon. Let's put it that way. Would you agree with me
Don't think
that
so. No, I know
that's
you've said that before.
feasible?
If they had a magic button that could just kill Hamas members, I don't think they'd use it. That's not why they funded Hamas. They didn't fund Hamas just to kill Hamas. They funded Hamas to be agitators. They funded Hamas, right, to destabilize the area. There's a reason they wanted them there. And it's not
So
just to
would
kill them.
okay, so I was gonna go
You
different with
don't
this like
fund an organization just to randomly kill them at some point. You fund them, right, because they serve a purpose. And I'm suggesting that that purpose is because they want to cause another either mass exodus or mass unaliving. And that's what they're doing. That's why they keep pushing the evacuation line down.
okay,
That
that
evacuation line will just
I was
soon
I
be
was
the
gonna
Rafah crossing.
I was gonna go in a totally different route with that it's pretty obvious that if that was the case, then Israel would win the war like in no time. And the fact that Hamas knows that is why that's not the case. Why they don't come out of densely populated areas. But for your sake of argument, which I don't agree with, which is the agenda just to kill innocent Palestinians, but then wouldn't it be better for Hamas to remove themselves from the innocent Palestinians for the world to see just Israel not targeting Hamas? For your
I
thesis
mean,
of
Hamas has done in PR the best thing they conceivably can, right? Which is they claim, at the very least, that they do move away from innocent Palestinians, right? And a huge amount of their claims are that they are away from Palestinians. It's the Israelis that consistently claim that Hamas are in Palestinian and residential areas, right?
So when
So,
rockets are fired from
that's the
residential,
difference.
but the evidence
And
doesn't
they
like
also have
hold.
to sit there. The thing is, no, I know. I'm not saying they are fully, right? But what I'm saying is Israel has consistently and falsely on multiple occasions said that Hamas was in a residential area when the international community has either said they have no evidence to back that up or there is counter evidence to suggest they're just flagrantly lying. Okay, so Israel not only does lie about Hamas being in residential areas, right, but then uses that lie to justify the killing of Palestinians. There's no way to describe that other than a genocidal ethno state that wants to ethnically cleanse Palestinians. It's they're doing you're grasping for their excuses, right? Well, okay, well if they were genocidal, don't you think Hamas knows that? Yeah, Hamas knows that. That's Hamas's official position, obviously. If
I
you
just
read Hamas's charter, which one's I'm not pro Hamas. I don't support Hamas at all. I think they were actually an Israeli tool, not literally, right? But I think they were propped up by Israel for political reasons. But if we look at what Hamas says, they call it a genocide. They call it ethnic cleansing, right? And then they build their tactics around that. So yeah, everyone except Israel, with a reasonable eye, thinks this is a genocide.
So I think, like, for you, I'm not sure. Like, I haven't debated other people, but I think if your starting point is that this is Israel's agenda, then no matter what you look at it, then that's what you're gonna see. But for how I view it, or maybe other pro Israeli supporters view it, is that that's not the goal. Hamas is the goal, and obviously, if Hamas was not embedded in civilian structures, then there'd be zero casualties. That like
Okay.
well,
If
I can
Hamas
tell.
is the goal, why did they end Red Cross entrance into the Gaza Strip?
Why did they what?
Why did they not let the Red Cross into the Gaza Strip if Hamas is the goal?
We've been begging for the Red Cross to go see our hostages. They haven't. The Hamas is denying them access to our hostages.
Why has you once again? That is
I see you're
so
offended, so I
racist.
might have said something that I'm sorry if I triggered you, but
Yeah.
can you explain why
Are
you're
the only
offended?
civilians that you care about Israeli civilians?
Well, you're talking about the Red Cross, so the Red Cross has seen, captured Hamas in Israel and have checked up on them, and so we would have expected them to also check up on.
I'm just asking if the only civilians you care about are Israeli civilians.
No, I'm not, but in the context of the Red Cross, I
Okay,
think
then
that's
when I
what you were
talk about the
referring
Red
to.
Cross, you realize the Red Cross by and large would be addressing Palestinian civilians. And yet you took that opportunity to pretend like Israeli civilians were the only ones.
No, they're the only ones
Don't do
hostages
that.
there. They're
At
the only
least be a
ones
little better
hostages
at
there.
hiding your racism. So I'll ask you once again, why did Israel not allow the Red Cross into the Gaza Strip to aid primarily Palestinian civilians? Why did they do that?
So I think I have a misunderstanding, or I'm missing like a knowledge gap. Because are you talking about like the situation now or
I'm
before?
talking about the first 7 days of following October 7th. They cut off all
Oh,
humanitarian aid,
okay, okay,
including the Red Cross.
okay. So just to clarify, I'm sorry for my misunderstanding. I thought you were talking about hostage situation. I'm sorry. I see how that can kind of
First
come.
7 days of October 7th. Why
Yeah.
did they
So
cut off the Red Cross access?
so I don't know the actual reasons, but I'll tell you from my point of view why maybe I think they cut off other stuff as well. 3 days after the 7th of October, there was still they hadn't secured the border yet, and they hadn't things weren't really under control. So I mean that could have been a reason.
Why is that a reason? Do you think
Well, if
things
you've
are
got
under control in Ukraine? Do you think things are under control in Syria? Do you think things are under control in Lebanon?
no, but I'm talking. So when I mean out of control, I'm saying there's thousands of terrorists who cross the border, and their goal is to kill as many Israelis as possible. Not Jews, like citizens of Israel. And until you have that under control, like, yeah, this is why, like, I'm now numb to it because I've heard it so much, and like I'm an English speaker, but like a lot of Israelis, like, after when a terror attack is still ongoing, and then the other side is like, why aren't you letting us give access to this and this? And we're like, well, hold on, guys, we're still like, there's still hundreds of terrorists with, ammunition in like literally still doing attacks. Like, we're like, well, like, just give us a second, what?
But
Like,
that's when you need humanitarian aid the most.
no. So that's
You
so
don't think
listen,
during a
like,
terrorist attack, that's when you need Red Cross and Red Crescent the most?
you're talking about in Gaza when there hadn't
Hmm.
like yet been a response. Like, Israel hadn't done any response yet, and
Israel had done a response. Within the second day, Israel had responded.
okay, so you're talking when Israel started to respond.
I've made my time period clear.
Okay, no, true. Okay, so just for I thought you were talking about like the second day where things weren't just settled yet and Israel hadn't yet responded. Okay,
Wait, but come on, bro. Listen to what I say.
no, I know. I'm just
What time
I'm
period had I said?
okay. So you said within the first week, but okay, so you're talking about the end of the first. Okay, I get where you're at now.
It
So
required American and Qatari moderation, right, and negotiation to let the Red Cross and any humanitarian aid in. It does not take convincing to let the Red Cross in if you give 2 seconds of care to civilians. It doesn't. But if you don't, and you want civilians to die, then the Red Cross is a diplomatic chip you can play. And that's what Israel did. They used it as a diplomatic chip, right, with America and Qatar and Hamas.
So the Red Cross, I'm not so sure. I can't think of a reason why, but in regards to humanitarian aid, so when once a terrorist attack has happened by the group who rules the Gaza Strip, you're not going to be so fast to say, oh, here, take more aid, take more food, supplies, so you can continue do this before we retaliate. Like that's me logically thinking. I'm not sure about the proper reasons. Like, I'm not
The
a
Red Cross, it makes no sense for.
yeah. So that I would agree with you. Like, as I said before, I don't have any
Yeah, and I think
logical
that's
reason.
why I think Israel. That's one of the reasons I think Israel's a genocidal state. There's no excuse other than genocide to not let the Red Cross in.
I think, well, like, I would maybe in hindsight now, maybe even they would agree
I
with
think
you,
in
but like,
foresight they knew it. The longer they can push off the Red Cross, the more Palestinians would die in the immediate aftermath.
um,
Like, let's talk about the Nakba refugees. Why do they deny the Nakba refugees in? Because they don't want more Palestinians in their integral land. Why do they pull out of Gaza? Because they didn't want Palestinians in their integral land, right? Why are they engaging in settlements in the West Bank? Because they want to expand their integral land away from Palestinians, right? Why do they have the Golan Heights? Because they want to maintain military supremacy over Palestinians, right? A huge amount of efforts are taken by Israel properly and explicitly. They say it themselves, right? That they take actions to maintain a Jewish majority. Why in the world would those actions, right, of this extremist and horrendous government, end up looking like something that, is fair, is just? No, it's going to violate human rights to maintain a majority. And when you violate human rights to maintain ethnic supremacy, it typically comes in the form of a genocide. Because that's the point of a genocide, is to maintain ethno-demographic superiority. So that doesn't just include denying the human right of return, that also includes killing the people who are that ethnicity within the area.
so like, as I said before, if like, I don't think any answer I'd give you for now what's happening in Gaza, if you're looking at it from the lens of this is Israel's goal to do genocide, like, I don't think there's any answer I could give you that would satisfy you. But what I would say is, when Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip and gave it to the Palestinian people to govern for themselves,
Why
our
did they
dream.
say they did that?
so to to let them govern themselves, and our dream was to have a Singapore neighbor. And from there, I think if it would have not been, uh, if Hamas had not been elected, and I'm not saying they were re-elected all the time, they were elected once, like a long time ago. But I think like if we had a kind of like a Singapore Dubai neighbor, I think we'd be much more closer, or even at a two-state solution with
Well, the reason they said they pulled out of Gaza were
those
for
kind
two
of like
reasons. Sorry,
neighbors.
they gave two reasons for pulling out of Gaza. One of which was security reasons, the other one was for an ethno-demographic reason. So it wasn't because they wanted a nation next to them. They've explicitly worked against a Palestinian nation because that threatens their national security, according to them. And Bibi Netanyahu, who was in power at the time, didn't want a two-state solution. He never has. The reason they pulled out were for two reasons. One, security. Two, ethno-demographic. The ethno-demographic reason's the damning one. They pulled out of this area because it was majority Palestinian. And they wanted a Jewish majority in all of their integral and occupied territories.
Okay, but given the fact that like you can kind of look at it as like they pulled out for whatever reason, but like this kind of gives you like a concept, like
Racist,
for
genocidal
people living.
reasons.
Pardon?
Racist and genocidal reasons. They changed their approach of
I don't.
occupation, right? Because instead of validating that that is their territory that they must respect, right? They pulled out and crippled it from the outside. That's a drastically different approach, right? And it's a much more dehumanizing approach. When instead of moving in and integrating or putting settlements, which are still horrendous, into this area, which somehow but it still validates sovereignty over that land, and sovereignty comes with rights. They moved out, took all Israeli rights of the Gazans away, and then they violated their human rights by putting in the blockade. It's very different. You can't blockade a
So
place where there are Jewish settlements, not if you're in Israeli
okay,
government.
if Gaza today there was no war and Gaza was the new Dubai, everyone there was living their best lives, then you wouldn't say in hindsight that Israel's goal was genocidal or racist, correct? Like
That's not true. I
if
say
it
this,
was the
actually, this is hilarious because I don't think you know how much world history I know. I say this about Singapore. Do you know the story of Singapore?
I actually don't.
Yeah, so
I'm
Singapore
I'm
was formerly part of the Malay states, right? And then when Malaysia got independence, it was under a brutal dictator and was severely impoverished. And Singapore was actually one of the small parts of the then Malaysia, that was primarily one ethnic group. So it was a minority ethnic group that was quite concentrated in Singapore. Um, and Malaysia, or what later became Malaysia, kicked Singapore out. Right? It's one of the few countries to be founded by expulsion. They expelled Singapore from their borders because they were a different racial group. And look at Singapore now, right? Singapore is much, much more wealthy than Malaysia, and much, much more well off and much more internationally recognized than Malaysia. And yet, still, I say that Singapore was founded because of racism, and ethnocentrism, right? So, no, you don't even have to go to made up hypotheticals to say this. I'm happy to say, yeah, Singapore was founded because of racism. And even though it's now richer and more well off, its history is still it's scarred with that racism. And so is Gaza. Gaza just happens to, I don't know, be a slightly more successful situation of racism and genocide on the Israeli part than the Malaysian part.
but but um but Singapore, you wouldn't say you could say racism, but you wouldn't say genocide because people,
It
the
was
population.
genocidal. Actually, a semi-genocidal action was taken against that ethnic group that wasn't.
But
Um,
But I'm talking about in
That
today's
wasn't in Singapore. That ethnic group was actually by and large ethnically cleansed in Malaysia, quite famously. So first they expelled, then they ethnically cleansed.
yeah, but I'm saying in Singapore today, you define that there's an ongoing genocide there.
Well, no, there isn't an ongoing genocide, right? Because ongoing genocide is regarding power imbalances. You can't have an ongoing genocide against, people you don't have power over, right? And I'm not saying that the expulsion or the withdrawal from Gaza is part of an ongoing genocide, right? I think it was during it. Well, actually, I would, right? But that's only because the genocide kept going. You understand that?
I guess what I'm trying to ask, and I see, and I'm not sure how you answer this. I'm not even sure that it aligns because with your views in regards to Singapore. But what I would say is that there's a lot of leaders in Gaza, the founders of Hamas, who are living abroad and are valued at
Primarily in Qatar, yeah.
yeah, and at valued at net worth of like billions. And
Hmm.
I think just like for the Palestinian people living in Gaza, regardless of Israel, that the money isn't being distributed there for the benefit of the people.
Now, all of a sudden, the West gives a shit about wealth redistribution. I find that really uncompelling.
No, I'm not saying that it's uncompelling. I was just like in my view, the belief is if there's economic and like a future with prosperity that people can align to, and it gives hope for like living peacefully together, like economically, which is like a really strong reason. And so I also like workers, Palestinian workers, do come to Israel to work, and now it's been stopped for the moment with the war, but before that, so for me, it's like also the leaders that have responsibility to take for the well-being of their
Where was this bitching and moaning when Trump is a multi-billionaire and president of America, right? Or Bibi, who's worth millions, right? Bibi Netanyahu, who's worth millions and is in charge of Israel, right? He should give it to the poor people of Israel. Trump should give to the poor people of America, right? Rishi Sunak, the prime minister of the UK, right, is married to a multi-billionaire. She should redistribute. I agree this is an issue, but in what world do we start caring about that just with Hamas? Right? The whole West has totally ignored and totally gaslit everyone out of caring about wealth redistribution. And then they condemn Hamas for having bad wealth redistribution? What?
No, I'm just saying, like when you see the Hamas leaders' sons buying like tens of thousands of dollars of jewelry and bling bling, and then
Yeah,
like
I
the
think it's wrong, but
situation.
I think it's just as wrong as Trump buying bling bling and hiring his children in his administration. What are you talking about? Of course, I care about wealth redistribution. I'm a leftist, right? But
Oh,
Israel
okay.
doesn't
So,
care about wealth redistribution. America sure as hell doesn't care about wealth redistribution.
so,
So
so
we
we,
can
so,
have that discussion when we just take 2 seconds to look in a mirror.
well, I was gonna say I think we agree on that point then, but like, what do you mean look in the mirror? Oh, you were talking about
America,
like,
one of the most wealth unequal
okay.
countries in the
I thought you
world.
were talking to me personally. Sorry,
No.
misunderstanding. Okay, so we agree on that.
Okay.
Um, okay, so
But I
I
condemn Israel
guess
quite a bit more for that, just to be clear. Israel has a lot more wealth and a lot more wealth inequality.
um, it's not like there are millionaires and billionaires in Israel, but it's like people who used capitalism and like build companies, and it's not like just funded money from like in the form of a charity foundation, and that just goes to its founders. Like I'd say it's a bit different than Hamas. That's all I'm trying to say.
You're not going to win me over by saying they got the money from
No,
capitalism.
for sure, for sure. I wasn't trying to win you over. I was just saying that my point is that like
Yeah,
the
I don't.
leadership there
The thing
also
is,
isn't great.
I don't find it a whole lot more ethical that they stole it from workers than they stole it from refugees.
Like, but the people, like the people giving the money to Gaza or even donating, and that like it gets taxed a lot by their government, and it just goes to the top three leaders who are billionaires. Like I think that's like there's no infrastructure, there's no.
Yeah, and when I work, it gets taxed. That's called profit, right? But we're just going to get into me being a leftist. I genuinely don't agree. Do you have another point?
Um, no, not really. Would you like to ask me anything as like if you have any questions? Just like out of curiosity or.
No, I don't.
Okay, Will, well, it was lovely meeting you. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for having me on.
Slay, peace out. Should be interesting.
Hey,
Hello,
well, I was sitting here listening to you.
can you hear me?
What?
Yeah? Yeah, you were.
Well, I said to myself that, 500,000 people lost their lives in Ukraine, and 500,000 people lost their life in Syria, and 250,000 people lost their life in Yemen, and you didn't open any live and talked about it. And I wonder, maybe it's because they're not Jews, right?
Hmm.
You can smack the Jews because they're weak and they're few.
I don't know why I don't know why I would smack my grandfather. But if that's your view, we can talk about it.
This is what I
I don't
call
know why I would
hypocrisy.
smack my ancestors. I don't know why I would smack, right, people I grew up with intimately and around. I don't know why that would be my view, right? I don't know why I would smack a people in a religion that I have a massive amount of respect for. The difficulty, right, is that I didn't open alive for some of them, partially because I wasn't alive, right, or I wasn't of age, right, during Yemen, the primary
What
Yemeni
about Ukraine?
crisis. I wasn't of age for, right,
What
or the
about
Syrian
Ukraine?
crisis. I also really wasn't
There's
of age
much
for the
more human
Gulf Wars. I
suffering in
weren't of age
Ukraine,
for,
and you
right.
didn't open a
So
live
no,
on it.
but secondarily, America wasn't directly and clearly funding them, right? So the Yemeni one, they were. I'll take responsibility for Yemen. We were funding it through Saudi Arabia, similar to Libya. We were funding through Saudi Arabia. Syria, we weren't directly funding. Okay.
Yeah, but you are
Ukraine, we're
about to
directly
reduce
funding, but
human
I
suffering, right?
generally I don't have nearly as many. I don't have nearly as many moral qualms with what Ukraine is
Wait,
doing,
wait. Do you want to
right?
reduce
Because
human
by and large, I
suffering?
do view that as a more anti-imperialist
Do you
view.
want to
But
reduce human
secondarily, I don't.
suffering?
Stop speaking. It's not difficult. You're an adult, right?
Yeah, but I'm asking you a question, right?
Okay,
It's
then
about...
let's act like one.
Okay, so do you want to
Thank you.
reduce
Stop
human
speaking. So
suffering?
I'm going to continue speaking because you've just accused me of anti-Semitism.
Yes, I think you're
So be
anti-Semite.
careful with that, right? When my family is Jewish and I have a deep respect for them.
They're safe-hating
Be
Jews.
careful
You know
with
it
that, right?
exists.
When I've advocated in allyship with Jews my whole entire life.
Look,
Because
I
no,
told
I
you.
am not
Do you
anti-Semitic. I
want to
have nothing
reduce
against
human
being. I've
suffering?
stop speaking because I don't appreciate being accused of
Okay.
anti-Semitism. I don't know. I don't appreciate
You're
being
bullying
accused
me.
of anti-Semitism when it's a good part of my
You're
identity that I
bullying
have
me because you
a
know that
Jewish
I'm right.
heritage, right? So no, okay. Are you able to act like an adult?
Yes, but are you going to bully me? Or are
Yeah,
you
wait.
going to
You came in
conversate?
here making false allegations. Stop speaking
No,
for a
I asked
second.
a question.
I let
I,
you make
do you
your
know the
very
difference
long
between
sentence.
asking a
No.
question?
You're not welcome on my live if you continue interrupting me. I let you answer. I let you have your monologue. Can you let me speak?
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. Just to be very clear, if you interrupt me again, I will kick you. Does that make sense?
Okay, go ahead.
Wonderful. I take great offense to being called anti-Semitic. But secondarily, your argument's nonsense. I don't have to earn the right to call out genocide. I don't have to earn the right to call out human rights violations. And if I start now calling out human rights violations, I didn't have to in the past. Also, I'm 19 years old. I've only been of age to talk about anything of relevance on TikTok, at least, for about a year. And I've spent that year, right, talking about human rights violations in my own home, oftentimes in allyship with Jewish people. So, no, that's not true. This isn't my first issue, right? Nor will it be my last. And it's nothing to do with them being Jewish. From my view, I believe that Zionists are some of the largest anti Semites in the world. There's a reason that evangelical Christians support Israel. There's a reason the only Jewish member of parliament, when the Jewish Colonialization Association was founded and seeking support, actively worked against it because it is a heretical, despicable, anti-Semitic
But I
ideology.
mean, there's so
So
much
no,
human
the Zionists are the
suffering.
anti-Semites, and I can condemn them to the world's end before I ever
But
become
this is a joke
anti-Semitic.
because
And I don't have to.
there's
I
so
have to
much
earn the
human
right to call that
suffering.
genocide.
Listen,
That's absurd. And once again, you've broken the rule. It's not difficult. It's not difficult.
you don't
How
want
old
to
do you?
have a
Can I ask
dialogue.
how old you
Just
are?
want to have a lecture.
Can I ask how old you are?
Why does it matter?
Because you need to
I'm
act
older
your
than you.
age. Stop speaking when others are speaking. We
Don't
learned this in
educate me.
kindergarten.
Okay, now there is much more human suffering caused by Islam in Islam Muslim
I
countries.
categorically disagree.
Okay, this is an actual fact. I told you the numbers: 250,000, half a million of people in Syria,
I disagree that was caused
250
by Islam. Let's go
in
through
Yemen.
that
There is no,
by and
listen,
by.
there are
Let's talk about the Yemeni
21
crisis.
There are 21 Arab countries in the world. Okay, none of them really cares about human rights. They do not care about women rights, about gays' rights, anything. Do you know, by the way, that gay Palestinians are running from Palestine into Israel and give Israel are giving them shelter?
And you know, gay
Did you know that?
Palestinians faced blackmail of the IDF to become informants
So what's the problem with that? Did you know that
using someone's
93%
sexuality as a tool to blackmail them into being
sexuality? What
informant
the hell are you
against their
talking
own
about?
people?
Did you know that 93% of the Palestinians believe that being gay should be punished by death?
We can talk about that
You're a
statistic.
lefty, right?
Address my point.
You
One
care
second.
about gay
Address my
rights, I
point. Do
guess.
you think it's homophobic to blackmail someone on the basis of their sexuality to use them as an informant?
Show me the evidence that it happened.
Show you the evidence. This is a Reuters
Yes.
report of it happening. Reuters
No, I don't
International
care about
reported it.
reports.
What?
I need the evidence. There are false reports everywhere.
I mean, it's an international report.
Yeah, like the BBC,
Okay, so if
where
you
they
just claim
report
that
that
everything that
Israel
disagrees
bombed
with you is false, we have no point in talking.
the hospital
Right? It's
and
a
500
Reuters
people
report
died.
that internationally recognized this. Israel is not an ally to the
Yeah, it's
gays.
like they reported that
Gay
Israel bombed
marriage is
the
not
hospital
legal
and
within
500
Israel.
people died.
You cannot get gay married. You cannot get gay married in Israel.
Yeah, but gay people can live here safely, right? They can do whatever they want. They don't have to fear for their lives, like in like in
Is it
Palestine.
homophobic to not recognize gay marriage?
I agree with you with that we are not perfect, but it's much better to live here than in Palestine or in any Arab country, because they will
Do you
kill
know what
you
a
there.
whataboutism is?
So I wanted to tell you that Israel is not your problem. And I wanted to say also that if you'll change the Palestinians with, for example, the Swiss people, there will be peace in 24 hours. Okay? The problem is the culture of the
And here's the
Palestinians, is
racism.
Islam. It's not no, it's a matter of culture. You don't understand the Middle East. Do you know what is Dar el Islam and Dar el Harb? Do you know the
I understand
differences?
what you're suggesting. I understand. I've had incredibly long talks about Islam, right? Hear me out, with my Islamic friends, with my Muslim friends.
They teach
The
Muslims
difficulty
in
here
Muslim
is the
schools
Middle
to hate
East.
the Jews.
The Middle East, okay. The Middle East was set up to fail. Kuwait was made to fail. Iraq was made to fail. Iran was actively neutered. Afghanistan was drawn to fail. Syria was drawn to be neutered. Who drew those lines was the West. And every time, it's insane to suggest this, that it's somehow having to do with Islam, when Islam led some of the largest educational and peaceful times in the world's history. Under
In the
the
Middle
Ottomans,
Ages.
we saw some of the largest academic booms in the world, some of the
First
most
of all, I don't
well-funded
care
and
about
centralized
what
academic areas in
I'm
the
talking
world,
about, what is
some of the most
happening now.
peaceful times between ethnicities in these areas that we have ever seen. So I will not sit and accept for 2 seconds that it is the fact of Islam. Islam doctrinally is much more accepting of Jews and Christians than
Oh my God.
Christianity or Judaism doctrinally is of Muslims.
I'm
Doctrinally,
sorry, you do not
Muslims
understand Islam.
are required to accept Jews and Christians. Not saying they always do, but I'm saying doctrinally they are required to. whereas Jews and Christians refer to Muslims as heretics and often actively view their religion as requiring them to attack them.
They would have
So no,
unallowed you in Palestine. Do you understand that? In Israel, you will be safe. No one will touch
you know,
you.
literally anyone would be unalived in Palestine right now.
It's insanity.
I don't think the Israeli bombs discriminate between the gays or the straights.
You know what I'm talking about. Don't be cynical.
Yeah,
They would have
no,
thrown you
you
from the
me being
roof.
cynical is me not
You're
accepting
gay,
your view
right?
that only
Because
Arab people can
are
kill people.
you're gay, right? I've heard you before. You
I don't
said that
know.
you're LGBTQ, right?
Yeah, so why are you speaking on my
So
behalf?
they would have thrown you from a roof in
I view
Gaza.
this as
You understand
fundamentally
that?
homophobic, by the way.
That's a
Using my
fact.
sexuality, tokenizing my sexuality
No, I
to
want to
suggest
show
that I
you
have
that
to support
Israel
a
is not the
genocide is
problem.
fundamentally
The problem
homophobic.
is Islam and
But
radical Islam. You don't understand. You are enemy
do
of
you think
Islam.
that
You're
do
not
you
a
think that
Muslim.
Orthodox Jews support gay people?
Orthodox Jews do not support gay people, but the fact is that
And
they have
Orthodox Jews have
rights here in
cucked the
Israel. This is what
Israeli
matters.
and Orthodox Jews have cucked the Israeli parliament for the past 70 years.
Yeah, but
So I don't want to hear about religious extremism from a
that in,
religiously extreme
okay, would
country.
you
They are
prefer
the
to live?
reason that gay marriage is not allowed
Answer this
in
simple
Israel.
question. Do you prefer as a gay to live in Israel, okay, or in Palestine?
I'm not living in either.
Okay, if you had to, pick your
But is this
side.
the question?
Yes, this is a legitimate question.
Why does it matter?
Would you prefer to live in Israel or in
Do you
Palestine as a
think
gay?
that someone's support or lack of
Are
support
you
for gay
going to
people
answer the
justifies their
question?
genocide?
Are you going to answer the question?
No, because it's not relevant.
Because you know the answer. You can't say Israel because it will destroy your narrative, right?
No, because
Yes.
let's engage in this nonsense.
No, I don't want to.
Israel,
If you're not
Israel.
going to answer my
Wait,
question, there's
sorry.
no point.
If
We'll
you
move
ask a
to
question, if you ask a question, what do I expect you to do?
hear an answer which you're not giving
Okay,
me.
so can we do that?
Okay, go ahead.
Because we're older than what age? 6. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd prefer to live in Israel. That doesn't justify the
Oh, thank you
Palestinians'
very much.
genocide.
No, it's because you know you will be killed there. That's why.
I just said it doesn't justify the Palestinians' genocide. We are talking about, and this is the thing, is the reason you pretend to care about gay people, right, is because it benefits you politically. Religiously, Judaism does not really care about gay people. Culturally, from my view, Jews are some of the largest allies of gay people, but extremist Jews are not. Oh, incredible. He was kicked. But I just want to make something clear to all of the people who have seen this talking point before. I am gay. Israel is not an ally of gay people. Jews individually have been some of the largest allies of gay people that I have ever met. Because they have an experience of oppression that is similar to gay people. Okay? So I have a deep and fundamental respect and allyship with the Jewish people and the Jewish struggle. So when people then bastardize that to turn that and suggest that I have to support Israel, when in fact the reason I have a strong, allyship and brotherhood with the Jewish people is precisely the reason that I do not like Israel and that I actively don't support Israel, is fundamentally disgusting. It is anti-Semitic and it is homophobic. And I don't support it. And I especially don't support people coming up here and suggesting that I am anti-Semitic for speaking up on Israel when I speak up on a series of other issues, right? But this one is just immediate and clear. That's why I'm lending my voice to it. Can I also just note, there are a lot of lies about how Israel treats everyone, right? Or Islam treats everyone. Islam is required to accept the people of the book, and many people do live through that, right? Like the treatment of Jewish people in Iran, right, is way overstated as bad. Way. It's bad. It's not the best. They are still a minority, right? But they have legal protections institutionalized into the Iranian constitution. Okay, let's just really be clear. The people of the people that you really should be talking about with Iran are the people of the Baha'i faith. The people of the Baha'i faith are persecuted to no end in Iran. But yeah, just to be clear. Okay.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Doing real well. What did you send a guest request to disagree on?
Okay, so there were a few stuff that overall I do disagree on. I think that overall Israel is, first of all, a way more liberal place. I think that in general the Israeli government is to blame for a lot of stuff. I don't know if you know politics and how it goes here roughly, but the thing is that right now, for the past roughly 12 years or so, most of the government is very like right and religious, and the main reason being, of course, because the politicians sort of bribe the super ultra orthodox communities in order, to get voted in
Okay,
parliament.
I'm going to cut you off there.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I don't want to hear your points first. I want to hear your thesis first. What did you come up here to talk about? What did you come up here to disagree with me on?
No, I think that overall, even though we have a very pro-right government right now, I think that the main thing to take is that with this government, we're still very liberal. Yes, we don't accept gay marriage and so on.
Okay, who cares? Wait, no, I don't care. I don't care. This doesn't matter. You can be as rainbow flag and supportive as you want. Doesn't mean you get to genocide another peoples.
So, first of all, let's speak something like, don't get me banned here. I hope that I'll not get banned for saying it, but you also have to take, the numbers that get out there with a grain of salt. So, first of all, militants up to roughly the age of 21 are considered children by the state of Hamas. And second of all,
So are you suggesting that there aren't a wide amount of civilian casualties and a
no,
huge
of
amount of
course
women
there
and
are.
children casualties?
I
Okay,
don't
then I don't care
say
to
that in
debate
any
the
way.
exact numbers because you have no better numbers than I do. So the point here is the actions of Israel are genocidal and the actions of Israel are despicable.
Okay, I
Let's
have a
talk about
question.
those.
I have a question.
How do you justify, for example, the actions of Israel with the Nakba refugees?
I have a question. Why
Okay.
uh why is it okay for 1,400 Israelis to be slaughtered? That's roughly
It
half
isn't. I never said it was.
roughly half of the 9/11 attack, and not for Israel not to do anything about it in order to protect itself and put
Did I ever say
mechanisms in
Israel shouldn't
place.
do anything about it?
In the end of the day, you're saying that Israel slaughters without end. Like, the thing is that the IDF, I know the IDF from
Wait, so what
very
was your
close.
question? Sorry, you're getting to a question. Or did you realize that that question involved a lie about me?
No, there is no lie. My question
Okay,
is it
ask your question in a way
justified?
that isn't dishonest.
Okay, is it justified to get 1,400 civilians killed and not to do anything about it?
Even Israel doesn't claim that 1,400 civilians were killed.
There were way more. There were roughly almost.
Israel does not claim that. Israel has reduced the number to 1,400 people, 500 at least of which were militants.
That's not correct. It was
That's the IDF's
1,400.
official number.
That's not correct. It was 1,430
I
in the
mean,
first.
we can look at the IDF's official number if we really want to.
Go for
Um,
it, and put a
I mean,
screenshot here
they've released the official
on the
number.
Google.
That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the correct numbers that they have released. Go
Go for
pull
it.
up the IDF and show me that I'm wrong if you want. But do I think it's acceptable that civilians died? No.
Okay, so why do you think that Israel doesn't have the right to defend itself?
Did I ever say it didn't?
You're condemning the actions of the IDF, so sort of.
No.
Okay, so why do you call Israel, the IDF as essentially killers when what they do is try to protect its civilians?
From people on life support?
What?
They're trying to protect their civilians from people on life support and toddlers?
Toddlers have been killed from both sides, and it started with the Israeli side.
You want to rephrase that?
I said toddlers have been killed from both sides.
And it started with which side, is what you said?
The October 7th attack.
Okay. So they're defending themselves from toddlers and children and people on life support. That's where I don't buy it. Bombing a hospital isn't defense. Bombing a refugee camp isn't defense. Shooting women and children point blank is not defense.
Okay, do you know what's built under the Al Shifa hospital? What were built under these places that were bombed?
I mean, I know what Israel claimed it was, but I also know what the UN independent report said about that claim. And they found
Okay,
under the Al Shifa hospital that the claims of Israel were unjustified.
do you know who right now runs the Human Rights Division in the UN?
You're talking about the Human Rights Council? This is not off the Human Rights Council. Do you only know one thing about the UN?
I actually know a few, and the whole situation of what Israel is uh, being right now is because actually the main first, I would say, the whole planning of the UN in 1948 is the main problem of why the Palestinians right now have the issue they have. The main issue
Yeah, when they
is
released that partition plan, they validated an Israeli state under Zionist rule existing. That is the issue the Palestinians have, because
so
they were put right next to a terrorist state.
that's the incorrect part. If you'll right now look in Google, the British Mandate map, you'll see that first of all, before even the UN allocation, there was Jordan and there was Israel. The Israel part was actually mostly filled with Jewish settlements, and the
Oh,
Jordan
in terms
part,
of land, but not in terms of population. And
in
it depends
terms
what time you're talking.
in terms of land and of course of land, because in the end of the day it's who
But not
buys
of
the land and who
not of
owns the land.
population. The Arabs had a majority population under the British Mandate
Okay,
Palestine.
I have a question. If your family has bought legally a specified amount of land, isn't it your land?
No, not if the people that bought it forced Palestinians off that land illegally.
Well, they weren't forced. There are
Actually, they
tons
were.
of
There were
documents.
consistent forces and intimidation of transfers of land, right, under British Mandate Palestine. That is why Britain actively
That's
withdrew
that's
their support of
actually
the
that's
Zionist project under
actually
the Palestinian project, under the British Mandate Palestine, because the Zionist terrorists
actually
consistently
incorrect.
made
You
independent
know that
militias
under the
that
British
intimidated
mandate,
and forced people off their
you know
land.
that under the British mandate, the one population that suffered the most were actually the Israeli population.
Utter nonsense.
Well, it was. You can look it up. Israelis were closed in Jerusalem, they were closed in Tel Aviv, and until the UN didn't propose a deal, they were literally locked in their own land. Now, take into account that Jordan right now has like the majority of Palestinians are actually right now Jordanian, and this was the land meant for the Arabs, but the UN gave two more pieces to the Arab people, and right now we have this conflict of the West Bank and Gaza that essentially took
You
part
think
of
the
the
UN only
Israeli
gave the
land.
West Bank and Gaza to the Palestinians?
What do you say?
Do you think only the West Bank and Gaza were given to the Palestinians in the 1948 partition plan?
Yes, they were. It was a bit more, but it's
Only
roughly
those
that,
two?
of course. And Jerusalem was an international city that was of course not under Israeli control. That's now half of it is under Israeli control and half is under the PLO.
I always find it funny when people speak on things they don't know. Have you ever seen the map of 1948 partition plan?
I have, yeah.
You don't seem to have, right? So they gave more than just the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, right? And if anyone with eyes and got two neurons to figure it out would see that they gave more than the West Bank and Gaza. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
hate to
no, of
impeach you just
course.
on
But the
knowledge,
thing
but do
is,
you think you know enough information to have this discussion?
Will, at 1967, when the Palestinians lost a bit of land, and the main reason being was because of war. When war happens, of course, the winner always gets to take part of like certain land. The thing is that
Is that really how war works in the
if
modern era? Because the,
if
because the UN international accords that Israel
oh,
signed
come
on
on,
to
come on.
says that
You don't
land
know
taken.
you don't know any history that the
Well, what I
Turks
know
had
is
a
the
huge
international
amount of
agreements that
land,
Israel signed on to.
The Brits
And
had a
one second,
huge.
sorry, the international agreements that Israel signed on to said that land taken in war was inadmissible in courts of justice. So no, I
My
disagree
guy,
that
I have a
conquest is still the
question.
norm and an acceptable
I have a
behavior
question.
following
Is
the
it
agreements of the
okay?
UN.
Okay. I have a better question. Who the fuck started it? Wasn't it Jordan,
Israel.
Egypt, Lebanon,
Israel
Syria?
started it.
No, fucking
Israel's claim of independence was fundamentally offensive and an
six
act of
Arab
war
countries,
against Israel,
six
against those
Arab
Arab states.
countries tried to take the whole of Israel. So of course Israel is going to fight back, and well, it won the land, uh, in
As I'll repeat,
in a manner.
international agreements that Israel signed on to said that they could not do that. So Israel is a functional hypocrite in most of its land claims.
Okay, my guy, tell me, from the river to the sea, your plan is for the whole of it to be Palestinian?
Look, oh my gosh, sorry, wait. Um, I may be a gay man and have a strong neck, but that was some whiplash even for me. Um, do you know how to have a conversation that actually follows any through line? Let's keep on what we were actually saying.
No,
Um,
wait. I just want the answer for this. What is your plan? Where would Israel be in the map, or wouldn't it be in the map?
can you logically connect that question to what we were talking about prior?
It doesn't have to do. I would just want to
It
know.
doesn't have to do with what we were
So
talking about prior.
I just
So
want to
why did
know
you run away from the previous discussion?
where the hell do you want to put the Israelis? Nowhere in the map. That's your plan. You want
What?
another. You want the 58.
I'm just confused as to why you
Wait.
pivoted
You
so
want the
hard.
58th
Like
majority
my neck
Muslim
physically
state?
hurts and not in a good way.
Wait, you want the 58th Muslim state with probably Sharia law and stuff?
Bro, what?
You
Why
know
did you
that,
move away from the discussion we were having?
my guy, Islam has taken over roughly 25% of the world's map, and it's only going to continue, and you're not even waking up. That's what's boggling me.
What's boggling me, I don't know, I might have gotten concussed in that pivot, but what's boggling my mind is how you are so comfortable running away from a discussion and just going full Islamophobic, right? But okay, if we want to
I'm not
engage in this
Islamophobic. I have
entirely new
tons of
discussion,
Islamic friends. As you
um,
say, I
one
think
second, sorry. Wait, sorry. Catch a bubble, babe. Catch a bubble. Wait, let's try our quiet ears. Okay. Um, do I have a preference for a Islamic state versus a fundamentalist Jewish state? No, I don't. So Israel is a theocracy in its foundation that's cosplaying as a liberal democracy. Um, so do I prefer that over an Islamic state?
where
Not a whole lot, no. Am
the
I? Sorry,
57
once again,
majority Muslim
that bubble's gonna
states.
pop, babe.
The
So as
57
I was
majority
saying,
Muslim states are
as I was
very
saying,
theocratic,
as I was
by the
saying, do
way.
I support? Sorry, excuse me.
Otherwise,
I'm
the
sorry. I'm
Sunni
speaking
and
right
Shia
now.
wars
I'm
wouldn't be
sorry. Oh
happening.
wait, I don't know. I don't know if we're having a difficult time hearing. There we go. That's crazy. Do I have a preference in theocracies? No. Am I anti-theocracy? Yes, I am. Yes, I am anti-theocracy. Right. So I don't believe in founding a Palestinian theocracy. I don't believe we should found an Islamic jihadist state. And
Not
that wouldn't be my suggestion,
definitely.
nor is that the PA or PLO's suggestion. Right. What they're
It is.
suggesting is that they found a liberal democracy full of Palestinians. Because hear me out now.
That's
There
what
are,
they promote to
wild
the
idea,
West, but that's
Palestinian
not what they
Christians and
promote
Palestinian
to their
Jews.
own people.
What?
That's what they promote to the West. That's not what they promote to their own people. Their own people know that that's what they want, a theocracy.
I mean, if we're just going to be a conspiracy
Or
theorist, we
wouldn't be
can
happening, my
say
guy.
anything we want now, can't we?
The whole reason this war is happening is because, in the end of the day, they want a state that's majority Muslim.
Majority Palestinian. I'm
Majority.
not too bothered about the Muslim part. The PLO specifically is quite a secularist group by comparison to the current. It's surprisingly secularist.
Okay, can you tell me why the hell most of the Muslim countries have almost no percentage of, like, in terms of Jews, it's almost zero, but also in terms of Christians, the numbers are lowering year per year?
Yeah, so I would love to talk about why there was a Jewish exodus from the Middle East
No, not only a
and
Jewish
from North
exodus,
Africa.
a
Why was
Christian
there a
one.
Jewish exodus from the Middle East to North Africa? Why did the population in Morocco and Algeria and Libya and Egypt and Saudi Arabia and UAE and etc. decrease following 1948? What could we think happened in
I'm
1948? And
asking
then why
about
was
the
there another
Christians, not
mass
the
decrease in
Jews.
1967? Hmm. Hmm.
Tell me,
Maybe it's
how
because
was there
maybe it's
roughly 50
because
years ago only?
maybe it's because when Israel claimed to be the voice of Jews, and then Israel committed absolutely horrendous war crimes, that someone got
Will,
confused and thought they were the voice of Jews. Who would have thought that?
I have a question. I'm not talking about Jews because Jews are almost non-existent in majority Muslim countries anymore, unfortunately. But I'm talking about Christians. Why the hell in most Muslim countries the Christians are decreasing as well? And why in the
Because the
European
Muslims are
countries the
increasing, brother. What?
Muslims
Also,
are
because once
increasing?
again, Christendom is committing horrendous acts against the Middle East.
That's only in one area.
Christendom, like all of the West,
Tell me,
and
why
also
the hell?
Lebanon and Jordan and Iran have Christians, and Iran, at the very least, have constitutional protections for Christians.
Even if they have constitutional protections, it doesn't mean that they follow through. It's just like them
No, it
having
doesn't. But you
constitutional
know who
protections
certainly doesn't
about
follow through
Jews.
for their
But
protections for Muslims?
if a Jew ever
Wait, sorry, I
lands
live
by
in the
mistake in
UK.
Iran,
You know who
he's going to
certainly
be
doesn't follow through with
incarcerated.
their protections of Muslims? The UK or America or certainly France. France is actively Islamophobic.
You're funny, my guy.
You don't think France is actively Islamophobic?
First of all, France is, in general, they really don't like foreigners, no matter who you are. I don't know if you
Especially
paid
if they're
attention
brown.
to it, but the French are known for that. So it doesn't have to be specifically Islamophobic. It's in general they just feel they
I
feel
think
so
making
pressured
hijabs
by
illegal is pretty explicitly Islamophobic.
they took so many Syrians and then they got a culture shock. So I think that made them really
Islamophobic.
anti foreigners in general. They don't even take
They're not
Ukrainians.
that fussed about the Americans moving there.
At the moment, they don't take even Ukrainians. And Poland, on the other hand, doesn't take, of course, the Syrians and take only Ukrainians because they already know that other countries suffer from, terror attacks, rapings, increased crime rates, etc.,
I mean,
from
they
the
literally
stuff
made
they sell.
hijabs illegal to wear. I don't know how you can argue against this, but whatever. My point is there's mistreatment of
And
minorities across the world.
you know
Right? It's
why
not
they
unique
made
of
it
it's
illegal?
sorry, sorry, it's not unique of the Middle East. And in fact, the Middle East has, Islam specifically, has doctrinal protections for people of the book, like the Jews and the Christians. What's worn that away, by and large, is political lack of support for the ethno-states of the Jews. And the reason that there's a decreasing population of Jews in these areas, well, by and large, those Jews are going to Israel.
And the main
So
reason
Israel is causing this exodus.
they're moving to Israel is because they feel super unsafe in these countries. And
Yeah, and they're feeling more. I don't doubt that they feel unsafe.
anti-Semitism
But
is on
what
the
I'm
rise.
saying is they feel more
Just
and
like
more
now in the
unsafe as
West,
Israel continues to exist.
you know
It's a
that
funny little self-serving loop.
you know that
Israel
more and
is
more
making them
people,
less safe.
the more people that are like you that are very pro-Palestinian are actually the kind of people that make the Jews very fearful of living in the West. And this is
I
why
entirely
they're moving
disagree,
back
actually.
to Israel. So
I think
essentially
Zionists are
what
some of the
you're
most
doing is the
anti-Semitic people in the
reverse.
world.
You're doing the reverse effect of not welcoming the Jews in your places, but rather being, anti-Israeli.
I'm sorry. I actually think the best, sorry, let me just correct you there. I actually think the best solution to this issue, right? I think the best state solution would be for the Western powers to put their money where their mouth is and accept Jewish immigrants from Israel. So no,
You
I
know,
actually entirely disagree. I would love to see
you know
lots and
that
lots of Jewish immigrants from Israel into America, my
you
home
know
state.
what's funny?
Because we are the ones that are claiming to protect Jews, so we should take it into our own hands. I would love to see more Jewish immigrants into America.
And
Right?
you know
And
that
once again, I'll repeat what I've said before. I have Jewish heritage and I have a massive amount of respect for the Jewish tradition. I have no hate in my heart for Jews at all. And actually, I would love to see more Jewish immigrants into America because we
Israelis are
claim to
actually
support Israel.
accepted in
We
many
claim to
places. The
support
thing is that
Israel.
Israelis
We
don't.
claim to support Israel for the protection of Jews, right? But then we don't put our money where our mouth is and accept them. And also, a huge amount of Israelis do have American passports anyway, American or Western passports anyway. So it's not that big of an issue anyway.
Okay, do you know that roughly 60%, I think it's about 65 already, percent of the Jewish population in Israel are actually Moroccan,
Mizrahi?
Iraqi?
What?
Yeah, they are Mizrahi Jews, that's right.
I know your talking points like boom, 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 boom.
So
Because you need to
where the
learn
hell
something
do
new.
you
I
want
know
them to
I
go?
know they're Mizrahi, right? But that has nothing to do with what we were just saying. Can you connect that to what you just said?
Of course, because you just told me that, yeah, they can just use their passports and go immigrate to the West.
No. I said I would love to see them immigrate west, and a lot of them are dual citizens. I believe it actually is one of the largest dual citizen populations of any country.
That's
So,
right, but it still amounts
okay,
to roughly
so you're not disputing
15%.
anything I'm saying. So you're following points like your script is not retorting anything I'm saying.
I don't
Can
have
you
any
actually
script, my
disagree with
guy. I
me on
think the
something
only one
rather
that
than
has
just
a
pivoting
script
all over
here
the
is
place?
you. I'm just saying my opinions. I don't have any script here.
Oh, you're not actually having a discussion?
I'm having a discussion. I don't have any
You're
script.
just saying your opinions though. Can you actually talk back and forth with me?
Of course, go ahead. Do you have any
Okay,
questions?
cool. So you accused me of being anti-Semitic, which I find quite detestable, right?
I think everyone here that
You
was
said I
Jewish
didn't want to see
felt that.
Jews move
I'm
into
not
where
saying
I
like
live.
you
Brother, I
might
live in one
not
of the
be
most Jewish
anti-Semitic
cities in the
as you
world.
put it off, but it does seem so.
Okay. This is a classic Zionist move. They will claim anything anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic. It's utter
That's
nonsense. Okay, how do you explain the anti-Semitic
no.
Zionists
Wait. You're an anti-Zionist, right?
then?
So you know what anti-Zionism means? That you essentially don't want any state of Israel to exist, or any Jewish
No, I
state
don't want
for that
any
matter to
Jewish
exist.
ethno-state in Israel
Exactly.
to exist.
Okay. So okay, that's one point to have. So okay, is it okay for 57 majority Muslim states to exist?
Majority of certain ethnicity is very different than a ethno-state. But
Okay, so there
do I
are roughly
support? Sorry,
35
I'll correct your
ethno-Muslim
question and then I'll answer it
states.
in the way that's correct.
Let's go
Sorry.
down there.
Uh,
35
oh,
ethno-Muslim
okay.
states,
Do I
right?
support Arab? Sorry, do I support Arab ethno-states?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Given the fact that there are
So wait, so am I
35,
anti-Semitic yet?
given the fact that
Sorry,
there
answer my
are,
question. I answered yours. Am I anti-Semitic yet for that view?
yes, you are.
Okay,
And
prove it to me. If I don't
I'll
want
tell you
Muslim
the main
ethno-states,
reason
and I
for
don't
it.
want Arab ethno-states, and I don't want Jewish ethno-states, and I don't
Okay.
want Christian ethno-states, why where's my anti-Semitism?
Okay, I'm also, first of all, not pro any ethno-state here
Okay,
whatsoever,
explain
but
my so we agree then. You don't want a Jewish
okay,
ethno-state in the
but
area
in
either,
my
right?
in my opinion, and I hope you don't take it too far, but in
No,
my
I don't care
opinion,
about your opinion. Give me where I'm anti-Semitic.
okay, so
Tell me where I hate my
the
grandfather.
reason I think that you're anti-Semitic is because given the fact that there are at least 35 ethno-Muslim states, and in the land of Israel, almost 3000 BC, there are artifacts that prove that Jews have lived in that area, okay?
Yeah, and there are also
That's way
artifacts that
before,
the Palestinians. Well,
that's
sorry, I'm
way
just going to correct
before
you. It's also
Muslims
hereditarily
existed.
the Muslim and Christian homeland, and there have been Muslims and
That's
Christians living
incorrect.
there for about as
That's
long.
incorrect. The Quran has only been invented roughly 1,500 years ago. So take that. Why
So take
does
that. Is that your level of argumentation? Do you not think that I know where Islam came from?
tell me
Also, a
why?
religion doesn't constitute a people's, right? A people's
Okay,
constitutes a
why?
people's. And you realize that the Canaanites, right, of whom the Jews are descendants, are also the ancestors of a lot of the Palestinians. So when you point to the fact that Canaanites lived in that area, right? Yeah, the
My
Canaanites
guy,
did live in that area. And a lot of the Palestinians can actually trace their lineage much closer to the Canaanites, right?
that's
Than a lot
incorrect.
of the Ashkenazi, specifically Jews, can.
Ashkenazi Jews are again not from the area as Mizrahi Jews.
Mizrahi, Sephardi, don't really care. All of them came through the Exodus, right? And when you talk about their relationship with the Canaanites, the Palestinians, if you do genetic testing, actually can prove Canaanite relationships a lot more. So, what's your point?
Islam didn't exist 1,500 years ago.
Yeah, but the
On the
people that
other hand,
became Muslim did.
Judaism exists already for roughly 5,500 years, and there are enough proofs to show that the Jews did live in this area. So I don't understand why there can be 57
I don't think there should
majority
be.
Muslim countries around, with the one tiny state at the size of New Jersey, that being the huge problem in the Middle East.
The one tiny state in one of the most diplomatically and militarily advantageous positions in the world. The one tiny state
Advantageous. How is it
that
advantageous
is
having
supported
such a
by the
tiny
West
state? Tell me.
unilaterally. Sorry,
Tell me,
I'd love to be able
Egypt
to get a
doesn't have a
sentence
way
in.
bigger advantage?
You're accusing me of being anti-Semitic, and I would love to get a sentence in. I'll do it this way, because you seem to like your own voice being heard much more than hearing anyone else's. Do I
I love
support
hearing
Arab
your voice as well. I
ethno-states?
just want you
We're
to
going to do
state
a little quiz
facts.
here. We're going to do a little quiz here.
Let's go for it.
Do I support Arab ethno-states?
You said nope.
Okay. Do I support any ethno-states?
You said no.
Okay.
I'm going by what you
So then
said.
is it okay, if I don't support any of those, is it any more or less anti-Semitic for me then not to support a Jewish ethno-state?
I'm not saying for you not to support a Jewish ethno-state. As of now, it isn't a real ethno-state because it's actually the only country in the world that accepts freely Jews, Catholics, Christians, Muslims, and the list goes on.
So I'm
So
asking, I
technically,
believe is so
Israel
I do not
isn't the
support Israel.
ethno-state
Sorry.
you're making it to
So I
be,
love the good answer. I love the good
unlike
question.
the 35
You said it wanted to be
ethno-Muslim
a Jewish
states.
state. You said it was a Jewish ethno-state. Okay. You're now backing off on it. But I'll just say, I
The
believe
thing
it to be
is
an
that the
ethno.
government
Sorry.
right now is
Sure,
very
but
far
you've
right.
been on so
That
many
doesn't
monologues,
make it an
Lennon.
ethno-state.
Lennon, I need you to stop speaking.
Go for it.
Are you an adult, Lennon?
I'm 25, so I would consider
Can we act
myself
like
an
it?
adult. My guy, the only one that doesn't act like it here is you, but do whatever you want.
I mean, I'm not the one monologuing and continuing to interrupt.
Okay, go for it. Talk. I'm
Can you
muting
stop
myself.
interrupting every time I speak? That would be really appreciated. Is that possible, Lennon? I'd love an affirmative.
Go for it.
Can you not? Can you tell me you're going to stop interrupting me, Lennon?
As long as you'll not stop interrupting me, let's go for it.
Wonderful. I agree. So I don't support ethno-states. Israel is an ethno-state, so I don't support it. Is that anti-Semitic?
Before I answer your question, what makes Israel an ethno-state in your opinion?
The fact that it was founded to be an ethno-state. So the original Zionist movement, right, Herzl, claimed that it would be an ethno-state. The underlying reason and explanation for the law of return that they passed was it for it to be an ethno-state, and still they maintain that they require a Jewish majority. If part of your national interest is to maintain a certain majority of an ethnicity, you are an ethno-state. Do you contend any of those facts or any of those conclusions?
First of all, Israel doesn't plan to have a majority Jewish population, even though it's of course right now has, because of the far right government that in the end of the day they encourage ultra orthodox Jews to have more children. But other than that part, there is nowhere that having bigger families or whatever gives you a benefit over others in the state of
Have you
Israel.
seen the Israeli flag?
Of course, it has a Magen David.
Does the Israeli flag maybe represent an ethnicity?
The Magen David is a symbol of protection.
A Jewish symbol of protection.
Of course, it's a Jewish symbol of protection, and you know why it has a Jewish symbol of protection? Because the Jews, let me maybe educate you, because you might have forgotten that World War II wasn't far, like a long time ago, but Jews in general were seeked after and slaughtered in the millions. And since then, all the Jews wanted is to find a land to be and live peacefully.
And Zionism and its concept existed prior to World War II. Let's just be very clear. But so why I
It
believe
did
it's an
exist
ethno-state is because the
prior to
founders.
World War. That's correct. It did exist prior to World
Okay,
War
cool,
II.
great. So
But
I love keeping
after,
promises. That's what I
don't
prefer.
interrupt me.
What people do.
You told me you'll not interrupt me, right? So the thing is, yes.
You would literally interrupt it. Wait, Lennon, you started speaking while I was speaking. You interrupted me.
I spoke and you spoke on me, my guy.
While I was
Anyway,
sorry,
I'll
no,
finish it.
you
It's
unmuted.
super
You
fast.
unmuted while I was speaking. You unmuted while I was speaking, right?
Anyway,
and then
it's
bitched about
super fast.
what?
It's super fast.
No, not super fast. No, I'm going to continue speaking. What? No.
Go for it.
You're
If
such
you
a.
wanna.
Are you
Okay.
kidding me? Are
Okay,
you
if you
kidding
want to
me?
act like a
I am
child,
a
go
gay
ahead.
man, but I am
Go
a gay man,
ahead.
but I get so sick of men,
Will,
bro.
Will,
Now I know
go
how
ahead.
women feel. Jesus Christ, you really tried to gaslight me into thinking
I don't
that
try
I
to
wasn't
gaslight you.
like
Go
that
ahead,
I was the one interrupting. What are you
my guy.
talking
Go
about?
ahead.
What are you talking about, Lennon? Oh, you said you wouldn't interrupt me. You unmuted yourself. What are you talking about? Okay. Um It's obviously an ethno-state. You aren't an okay. You don't become an ethno-state if you only give the immediate right of return to Jews, right? You can't be like, oh, I'm not an ethno-state if literally you have a Jewish symbol on your flag, right? Saudi Arabia is obviously an ethno-state, right? They have a Muslim and Saudi symbol on their flag. Duh, right? The right of return was one of the quickest laws to pass in Israel,
Will,
right?
so you
And
want
one
to
of the
tell me
earliest
that
laws to pass. This is
Will, you
hilarious,
want to
Lennon.
tell me that
This is getting
Switzerland,
comical.
Georgia
This is getting
are
comical.
ethnostates, essentially, because they have a symbol of Christ? That's not how it works.
You
That's not
don't
how it
think
works.
Judea? Okay,
It's pure
wait. You don't think
stupidity.
Israel is an ethno state, right? Explain the law of return.
The law of return is for Jews to safely be able to live in a place. Now, that doesn't mean that Arabs can't live there, that Christians can't live there, etc., etc. All it means is that Jews, if they feel unsafe in another country, they can feel safe that they have a place that will accept them for them to live
Okay.
peacefully.
Explain it being a interest of national importance to maintain a
It's
Jewish
like you
majority,
telling me,
as
hey,
has
now
been
Germany is a
sorry,
fucking
sorry.
ethno state
I'm just
because
gonna
they're
say this,
accepting Syrians.
as has been stated by every single government of Israel for the past 70 years. Every single government of Israel has, in one way or another, verbatim stated that maintaining a Jewish majority was an interest of national security.
That's
Do you
incorrect.
deny that?
That's
Okay.
incorrect.
In what period? So for the past
In
20
the past
years under
12 years,
for the
roughly,
past
under
20
Bibi
years under Bibi
Netanyahu,
Netanyahu, it's been an
exactly.
interest.
Under Bibi Netanyahu, that is correct.
Okay, so is it an ethno state right now?
It isn't an ethno state, but it is in the interest of Bibi Netanyahu. That's one prime minister.
Yeah, and it's been the national interest the whole time. The original
That's incorrect.
Zionists, right?
You know that
Herzl
his
literally said it was
popularity.
a Jewish state.
You
Do you
know
deny
that
that Herzl? Okay, do you deny that Herzl wanted to establish a Jewish state?
Herzl wanted to establish a Jewish state. That's correct.
Okay, if you describe something as a
Not a
Jewish
Jewish
state, is
state,
that an
but a
ethno?
state
Sorry,
which Jews
sorry,
could
no.
feel
If it is a
protected.
Jewish state, does that make it an ethno state?
He wanted a state that Jews would feel safe at.
He wanted a Jewish state. You said that. If he wanted a Jewish state, does that make it an ethno state?
Not necessarily, it depends how you plan it out. If it's only for Jews, then yeah. But it wasn't only for Jews.
Bro, what are you talking about? Brother in Christ, what are you talking about? What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, literally, what are you talking about? The point of an ethno state is not that every other one can't exist. It's that they need a majority. It's to maintain power of one ethnicity over another.
There is no rules making Jews needing to be yes,
Okay, why do they
higher
deny the
numbers.
Nakba refugees? Why do they deny the Nakba refugees? What's the explicitly stated reason that for the past 50 years they've denied the Nakba refugees?
First of all, that's incorrect. Most of the refugees have been like most. You know that Israel is roughly with
I'd love an
nine
answer to
and
the
a half
question that
million
I
people.
asked first.
Yeah, so they
So
haven't.
answer it.
They haven't. There are actually
They
roughly.
haven't denied the Nakba
There are
refugees?
almost 3 million Arabs that are now called Arab Israelis living in Israel. The ones that aren't in Israel are actually the ones that were on their own will going to the Egyptian part of Gaza or the Jordanian part of the West Bank. So essentially, they were part of Gaza, that was Egypt, or the West Bank, that was Jordan. Now, Israel doesn't accept them anymore, as it's already not under their control. It's not their responsibility to take these people back. But they decided to go that way. The ones that didn't decide to go that way are living here peacefully.
So you suggesting that no one got kicked out of the area that now
No, they
constitute
didn't.
Israel, integral Israel?
No, they didn't. And actually, I even have it's funny, but I have my grandma's like papers to prove that she actually bought her house from Palestinians, and they essentially sold it to her in order to leave. And that's the case for most of the places. Of course, there were maybe some tensions of force in all kinds of different places, but it was a
I'm going
super
to ask again, and
small
then I'm just going to
minority.
kick you. Sorry. You are saying
Did you know that
that
in
no.
the Gaza
Sorry,
area,
just stop speaking for like 2
in the
seconds because
very
you aren't the
beginning, there
only
was
person.
roughly only
Sorry,
30,000
catch a bubble, love.
Palestinians, right?
Do we know
And
how to
right
catch a
now there are 2
bubble? Okay,
million.
take a bubble, put it in your mouth, and stop speaking. Are you suggesting that no one got kicked out of, during times of war, places that now constitute integral Israel? Is that your view?
In times of war, it's a whole different topic.
That's when the Nakba happened. What are you
No,
talking about? That's
you're
when the Nakba happened.
you're
A
talking
time of
about
war.
1948, or you're talking about 1967?
Talking about the Nakba, brother.
When did the Nakba happen? Tell me.
During 1948, 1949, brother.
Good. The Nakba was essentially a force that the Arabs caused.
Can you answer my question?
Yeah. In
Okay,
every
do that.
war, there are displaced people.
Can
That's
you answer
correct.
the question?
Go for it.
I asked you a question, you didn't answer it.
If there were
Did you hear the question
displaced,
I asked you?
if there were displaced
Did you hear the
Palestinians,
question that I asked you?
if there were displaced Palestinians during the Nakba, that's correct.
Okay. You recognize that those people were not just from the West Bank and Gaza Strip.
That it really depends which area they were, but if they were from the Gaza part that moved closer to where the
I love
Gaza
a
Strip is
direct
right
answer.
now,
Do you
then
recognize?
yes.
I'm going to ask the question one more time, and we all can hear in this live. We've shown that multiple times. Were there Palestinians that were forced out of their home from areas that now constitute integral Israel?
Okay, let me answer it fully, and please don't
Start with a yes or
interrupt.
no and then go forward.
Okay. The answer is yes,
Cool.
but it's the exact same as what Israel did. A few years later, down the road, Israel moved all the Israeli settlers in the Gaza Strip, took even out the graves of Israelis from the Gaza Strip, just to make peace and make sure that the Arabs have their own place.
Good answer.
So from both
Cool.
sides.
So the thing about that is they did it because they didn't. So let's talk about let's talk about the Nakba a bit more because once again, whataboutism 2.0. If there were people displaced from their homes during war, do you know what the right of return is?
Okay, I have a question. If there were
I feel like I
Israelis,
just asked a question. But if
if
you
Israelis, no, I'll ask the same question. Do the Israelis have a right to go back to the Arab countries or to Gaza, to their homes, or to the West Bank where they settled?
settlers don't have the right of return,
Okay, so why do Arab settlers have the right to return?
because that is their indigenous home.
That is incorrect. The indigenous homes are actually from the Jews. And here you make the
Do you
mistake.
believe the Jews are the only descendants of the Canaanites?
Here I caught you red-handed. Like
Do you
that's the
believe the
fact
Jews
that you
are
have
the only
wrong.
descendants of the Canaanites?
No, I don't. But they
Okay,
are
are the
actually the
Palestinians
first.
also descendants of the Canaanites, by and large?
For some reason, I hardly hear you. I don't know why. Can you repeat it?
Are the Palestinians also descendants of the Canaanites, by and large?
Sorry, my connection is cut
Okay.
off. Okay, here I'm back. That's it.
Okay, I'll ask it a third time. Are the Palestinians also descendants of the Canaanites, by and large?
Arabs, yeah, but first of all, like you need to take one thing should be clear here. The Palestinians that are now calling themselves Palestinians aren't, for the most part, like, the Israelis are Palestinians as well, technically. They just changed their name to Israelis once the British mandate changed to Israel.
That's not entirely accurate, but regardless, people
That's
have called
entirely
themselves
accurate.
sorry, people have called them different peoples have called themselves Israelis throughout history, right? The Samaritans have called
You
themselves
know,
Israelis.
you know
But
when
one
the
second, sorry,
current,
I'm just gonna
you know
I'm
when the
gonna take that. So, do all descendants of the Canaanites have a right to the Canaanite land?
I think so.
Yeah. So the Palestinians have the right to that whole entire Canaanite land just as much as the Jews do.
And the peaceful ones are living in Israel just fine.
You believe that they have a native right to it.
I don't think they have a native right to it, but they can of course
Why
live
does
here.
any descendant of Canaan not have a native right to this land?
Okay, tell me, why doesn't the Canaanites, the Jewish Canaanites, have a right to go back to Egypt and to go back to Jordan?
I think, well, because those aren't the lands of Canaan.
They did go a bit over the Sinai Desert, and they did go over the Dead Sea.
Not by and large, right? So by and large, the lands of Canaan do not
Not
include
by and
most of
large,
Jordan
but
and
there is a certain area that they've went through that Israelis now are barred out, and that's the truth. So I
not
don't
entirely, but
understand.
if you could prove, sorry, I'm just going to make my position really clear.
Why
By
can't
and large,
maybe
though,
the
sorry, one second. By and large, those are not the lands of Canaan, right? The lands of Canaan, or at least they aren't the claims that Israel's claiming, right? So the important claim here is who is the proper descendants of the lands of Israel and of Judea, right? So the split kingdom of Israel is what I'm referring to as the descendants of Canaan. Okay. Those are the hereditary descendants that they take. But I'll make my position really general and really clear. If you can prove a historical homeland of your peoples, you should be able to live there,
Okay,
right?
and
So
Israel has
if
proved it
Jews can
countless
prove
of
a
times.
historical homeland in Jordan, right? One second. Sorry. If Israelis or if Jews can prove
Israelis have proved it
to
countless of
to prove
times.
a historical homeland in Jordan, they have just as much a right to be there as anyone else, and that's my view. But the thing is we're talking about Israel, so let's talk about Israel for a second. We know that a lot of Palestinians can prove a historical homeland in. Oh, did you get a call? Let's run this. It's unfortunate. Okay, I'm gonna take 2 seconds. I'm gonna go get water, and then I'll be back. Slay? Okay, I'll be back in music. Love you all. In that time, I upload these to YouTube. I did one yesterday. I'm gonna upload this one. Um, Follow me up here. That'd be great. Follow me up here if you don't already, and follow my YouTube. My YouTube is linked in my bio. So if you want to take this time to go do that, then come back. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Hello,
Hi, how old are you?
I am 57 and you?
Yeah, if you're 57, then why have you been shitposting calling me smelly in the comments?
You know, because you think yourself too much. You think that you're smart. You're a very young person, not because your age, because you're arrogant
I think it's difficult for me to
and you
think you're
think
smart when
yourself,
you have been
you think
shitposting calling me
yourself,
smelly in the comments.
yeah, yeah, because I never see you now. You give me back to come our inside, yeah. But you don't want to listen to other opinion. You think yourself too much. You
I'm
have a
happy
live
to
of
listen to people,
700 people.
not shit
No, no,
posters.
you think you know you are very smart. You think you're very smart, but you are very stupid because you don't have any knowledge. And you spread lie on 700 people now, and they hear your lie. Some believe you, some not. But I want to give you a few
Well,
facts
here's the
about
thing.
history.
Here's the thing. Here, sorry, I'm. If you want to speak to 700 people, that means I also have to. Um, I don't reward, shit talkers. Um, I don't reward spam commenters, and I
Give
certainly
me to
don't
say
reward
something. Give me. I
57.
nervous you. I know
Sorry,
that. I know that.
and I don't reward 57-year-olds that insult people like 7-year-olds. If you're going to insult me, at least insult me intelligently, right? Like I hope I just did by bringing you up and embarrassing you. So much love. Have the day you deserve. And I guess in your own words, ooh, stinky smelly. Oh, he got kicked. Thank you so much for the people who followed me. Is this guy loading? Let's see if he eventually loads. Anyway. Thank you so much for the gifts, by the way. Helped a lot, quite a lot. Let's see if any of these people load. Where are they? I will say, it makes it easier for me if you have a guest. Like, if you have something in your bio that could tell me your stance. Easier for me. Yes. Oh, okay.
Yo, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, I can.
Okay, I've been here for like an hour. I can go through everything. First of all, you talk about the Canaanite side.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, yes, 30 to 60% of the Palestinians are descendants of the Jews, right?
You've confused the Canaanites and the Jews.
No. Well, I'll get there. But 30 to 60% of them are descendants of the Jews. But
Not necessarily.
indigenous,
Also, wait,
no,
how old
I'm
are
giving you
you? How
stats.
old are you, Ronnie?
I'm 18,
What year were you born?
October 2005.
Oh, he's 16. That's unfortunate.
No, I'm not.
Sorry, but
I've been here for.
bye-bye.
Hello?
Hello. Hi,
How
would
are
you send a guest request to disagree on?
I don't disagree with you. I'm an archaeologist and I'm also was a professor.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really, really
Definitely
cool.
don't disagree with you. Uh what that what was his name from Israel?
I don't know.
Lenin? And the Jewish religion does not go back 5,000 years. For
Yeah,
one.
no, he's lying.
Yeah. Number 2, all of the Judeo-Christian Muslim religions are based on um previous religions like ancient Egypt, Sumerian, all of those things. Okay? When they were supposedly coming out of Egypt, the golden calf, that was the goddess Hathor. Okay? I live in Belgium, where we have a very large Jewish population, Hasidic, in Antwerp. And they say, not in our name. Absolutely not in our name. My godmother was Palestinian Christian. She escaped Palestine.
The sites.
She
I don't
escaped
know. He joined.
Palestine in 1967. And I dare anyone to sit there and say about the atrocities that are being committed. I'm sorry. My godmother's name is Shorey, and it is even what they do to Christians, even to this day. They don't talk about it a lot, but I'm sure you know. Obviously, you know your stuff. You know what you're talking about already. You already know what you're talking about. They spit on Christians. It doesn't matter if they're Palestinian Jew, Palestinian Christian, Palestinian Muslim. It doesn't matter. If they're Palestinian, they're going to hate them. It's the fact that they're not white or the right color. As long as they're from white and in the right part of the world that they come from, that's what matters to them. Ask an Israeli if they're Jewish and they come from Eritrea, Ethiopia, some of the surrounding. They are treated less than a white Jew. Ask them. Those people are treated as vile as they treat like the Palestinians. They treat, how were they treating the Thai people that were working for them? Ask them how they treat those people. They don't treat them with respect, with humanity. They're disposable. Just like in America, how many ethnicities are quote unquote disposable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's true. Well, hey, I'm gonna try and look for someone who disagrees. But I
Okay,
appreciate you
that's
coming up
fine.
and
That's
sharing
fine.
that, yeah.
I just the thing about the religion being over that fired me up, and the fact that sitting there saying it's equal and that is such, pardon my language, that is such bullshit. Such
Yeah,
bullshit. Anyway,
absolutely.
you
Peace
are,
out. Appreciate
yes,
it.
you're amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Bye. Peace. Um, Actually, I'm just gonna get off because I'm tired and I need to rest because of this. So, but I love you all. Slay the day. Uh, and I'll probably be on later tonight. Probably. Um, yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But okay. Slay. I'm gonna upload this on YouTube. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for everyone who sent gifts. Thank you so much to everyone who followed. Follow me up here. Follow my YouTube. It's linked to my bio. And yeah, go do the good work. Bye. I'll give just everyone a second. I've never not heard you when I hear Slay. Very lucky.